Hey everybody, this is Larry the Cable Guy. Check this out. So I'm in my truck driving with my buddy, and we was heading up to the men's warehouse to fart in the suits, and he's listening to his phone, and I said, that sounds like Hermie Sadler. He said, it is Hermie Sadler. He's got a podcast called Leaning Right and Turning Left with Sadler and the Senator. I said, Sadler and the Senator? He said, yeah, that's his good buddy, Virginia State Senator Bill Stanley. I said, well, what in the world? He didn't know this. I said, did you know that Hermie Sadler was voted one of the 50 best looking drivers in NASCAR? He said, I did not know that. I said, because it ain't true. You never know, though. He never takes off his helmet. But I know one thing, this show Leaning Right, Turning Left is good. So pull up a chair right there by your phone, get yourself a cold beer, and give a listen right here to this week's episode of Leaning Right, Turning Left with Sadler and the Senator. I'll tell you what, I bet Michael Waltrip's even listening. He's always wanted to do something like that. Oh, Sadler, got another one over on Waltrip. Get her done.
I'm Virginia State Senator Bill Stanley. I'm tired, but I'm leaning right.
And I'm Hermie Sadler, and I'm turning left, leaning right, and turning left. Once again, with Sadler, and I can officially now call you the candidate for the Republican nomination in Senate District 7.
That's correct. That's great. Hey, Herm.
In the western part of the state.
Yeah, I just got notice. We're actually taping this for next week a little early. I was driving back after a 9-hour deposition in a crazy case that I've got in Virginia Beach. Deposed one guy. My voice is a little scratchy from it. I've never asked more questions in my life. But as I drove back, I talked to my man, Richard Krause, a great political operative, wonderful in the state. And I had been, of course, I'd gotten the signatures, put myself on the ballot, made sure the forms were all filed. It was a cluster fornication getting all those files into the State Board of Elections. But I was notified this evening that I am the only candidate who is properly filed for the Republican primary in the new Senate District 7. So I am the nominee, and I'm honored to be that.
Congratulations.
So I know you got a little bit of a primary fight, but so tonight was the deadline for the announcement that you had filed the paperwork properly. You're now a candidate. You're a candidate in the 17th. Is that right?
17th, yep.
And were you the only one that filed?
Well, you know better than that. But the good news is, we had a little bit of a back and forth on. I didn't have any back and forth, but my opponent had a back and forth. She was trying to will her way into a convention and kept pushing that narrative on social media and other places like that. But as we talked about on prior podcasts, the judge kind of put a kink in the works for all them that were trying to move this thing back to a convention and have one of her supporters in charge of it. So we do have a primary on June 20th and the 17th. Early voting starts May 5th. But the good news is my people went to the LDC meeting earlier this week and turned our paperwork in first. So we turned in our paperwork and had the required signatures. You need 250 to get on the ballot of registered voters. Right. You got over that, right? Right.
Okay.
Yeah, we turned in way over the minimum amount, and I got confirmation from the LDC chair, and so we will be on the top of the ballot in the 17th. And then I found out on social media the following day, or maybe 2 days later, that my opponent had turned in her paperwork. So she's also on the ballot, but we'll be at the top, and I'm told that's a good thing.
It is a great thing, actually. That usually is a number of percentage points that you get just by being on the top of the ballot. People pick the top of the ballot when they can't choose between the two. They pick the one on the top, so that's good for 2, 3, 4 points. So it looks like you're heading into a primary. When is the primary itself?
June 20th.
Okay, but early voting, as you said, starts
May 5th.
Okay, yeah. Because I don't have to worry about that.
Good for you.
I have to worry about November's election.
I'm happy. So I'll need you to help me worry about me.
Hermie, I've always been worried about you, man. I don't think I've never not worried about you.
I don't blame you.
I'm worried about you right now, only because I know you're going to do great. It looks like I may have a Democrat opponent, a goat farmer from Floyd County who's running as a Democrat. We'll see if she gets the nomination there, and whether I'm unopposed or whether I've got a Democrat challenger, you never take those things lightly.
Yeah, sure.
I always like to have an opponent. I like to have a debate of the ideas that are going to shape the Commonwealth of Virginia. When you have elections like that, you're going to have that, not just in the primary, which I think is great because you don't have a convention now. You have a primary. You had that fight. The court case was fought out by the legislative district chair, who's been removed, Dawn Jones, right?
Yeah.
For doing the right thing.
That's what I was told.
Filed for a primary. They tried to switch it back to convention using thumb on the scale type of measures by those at the top of the food chain of the Republican Party. The court said, nay, stop the shenanigans. You got the primary.
Right.
Now you've got two primary candidates running for the Republican nomination in the Senate, 17th Senate District, which is really going to decide and determine probably the balance of power, whether the Republicans win the majority in the state Senate, which will determine Governor Youngkin's agenda, whether it goes forward and whether we get back to common sense, good legislation that's going to help Virginians, like school choice and making sure there's no CRT and putting parents at the forefront of raising their children, or are we going to continue with Northern Virginia's liberal ways and be more like California than Virginia?
And I don't want to call names because I don't want to divulge too much because we are, competing campaigns. But I was in Richmond early today at a meeting with a firm, talking to them about helping us with our door knocking ground game and putting a team together for that to subsidize the local team that we have, because we know between now and certainly May 5th and then on through June 20th, the primary, we've got a lot of work to do on the ground to do that. And the guy that I was talking to, you could tell he kind of has, like you do, and probably like people assume that I do, listening to this podcast, got a fire in the belly to try to help the Republicans and the conservatives gain control of the Senate. But one thing he kept telling me, Bill, and this guy, is really a hardcore conservative and really has the people and the program to try to get Republican candidates over the finish line, because he said, Hermie, I hear everybody talking about we need to get 2020 so Winsome Sears can break a tie. He says on real conservative issues, we need 23, 24. It can't be 2020.
That's right.
And so, he really made me think that, and I know the 2020 would be certainly a big step in the right direction to give Winsome Sears some latitude to make some decisions. But he said, when things are highly contested like they are and contentious, and people are kind of, got their feet dug in on certain issues on both sides, he says, if you're a Republican and you really care about this agenda and getting stuff done, we need 23, 24. And so it really kind of jazzed me up a little bit to kind of hear him say that.
Yeah.
And then we started talking about the timing and the manner in which we knocked. We're talking about knocking close to 40,000 doors,
and that's the way you got to do it
between now and the primary
to get a win. You got to do
very aggressive.
Well, and that's a great policy. That's a great plan. I think you do that. Not only you're setting yourself up for the primary itself, but also ultimately for the general election. You got to get them excited about the candidate who's the Republican, that somebody's going to represent them finally, that lives here in this area. But then you got to get them jazzed to come back in November at the same time, because your opponent looks to be Clinton Jenkins right now.
Right.
Looks like Louise Lucas is staying in the new district out there, going to be running against Lionel Sproul. That's going to be a real bloodbath there. Yep. That's a political fight for the ages here in the Commonwealth of Virginia, as two Democrats fight it out for that seat. That's probably a toss-up, so it's going to be a lot of money and a lot of fighting. They're going to be distracted. The Democrats are going to be pouring money into that race next door to your right. And so maybe Clinton Jenkins, who's going to be the nominee, he's kind of like me, probably got the nomination tonight. He's got a lot of time to run from here in April all the way to November, unopposed, without a contrary view within his own party. But at the same time, he may be handicapped because they're pouring money into other Senate races that they're trying to hold on to seats with incumbents in them, rather than focusing on your seat, especially if you get the nomination and it looks like you're running a great race and it looks like we're going to pick up that seat. So that's what's coming. But before you get there, and we are sitting in this beautiful small business in Emporia, by the way. We are in, where are we now?
We are in Emporia.
We are.
You had court today in Virginia Beach.
A deposition, yes.
Usually, I know you operate on Eastern Stanley time, so we had earlier started or talked about maybe a 5 p.m. taping.
True.
And it's 9:09. So only 4 hours late.
Well,
But
I can't help.
better late than never.
I can't help a witness that takes his time answering questions.
Got it. No
Hermie,
problem.
it was one of the craziest cases. It's a crazy case. This guy, horribly injured when he was a child, got a fixed annuity settlement that paid him over time. When he became an adult, the allegation was today his mama may have taken all his money when he was a young kid. He had these payments. He started selling them off to get more cash, but then spent them on things like strip clubs and casino gambling.
Spend them on what?
Strip clubs and casino gambling. Well, we got another conversation about that in the future. And all sorts of bad stuff. And now he wants his money back. Now he wants his annuities back after he had all that fun. And as much as you feel horribly sympathetic for what his condition was, in my opinion, today, every time he opened his mouth when I asked a question, it was not perhaps the truth. And so it took a while. So I didn't get out of there until after 6. Got Mike Joins, a great co-counsel there. We're fighting for him. And so I got out here about a little after 8 o'clock, but we're here doing it now because I think it's really important. Because on the back half of this podcast, we had an interview that I did at South Boston before you got there. This weekend, we had a lot of racing going on with guys that knew you, of course. We have the owner of the Smart Series, Chris Williams, came back on to talk about where we're going with the Smart Series, how we are doing right now. Pace-O-Matic sponsors that series, doing a fantastic job. And then we had two other guys. Their new announcer, Bob Dillner, who I think you have experience with.
Oh, yeah. I worked with Bob for many years at Speed Channel.
And then a guy named Hoots.
David Hoots.
Hoots. So let's talk about that a little bit, and then we're going to get back into politics, and then we'll get to that interview. But that interview is coming up in the second segment. It's a great interview. I
believe that you got David Hoots to sit down and do a podcast.
He was amazing. He was funny, and he obviously knows a lot about you.
Big old country boy.
That I'm going to have to bring him back. I mean, he has a funny accent, how he talks, but he was interesting.
Here's what I heard a lot when I was driving. If I was driving the number 29.
And what was he at the time?
Race director.
Of NASCAR.
NASCAR. Oh, yeah. He did it for, I'm guessing, 25 plus years.
Oh, wow. He's got to have a lot of stories.
He said, post the 29, too fast entering.
Which meant you got in the pits too fast?
I told you this the other day. One of the last races that I ran that Hoots was race director was a Coca-Cola 600 in Charlotte. And I was running a Susan G. Komen paint scheme, and I forget the number on the car, driving for Bob Jenkins. But, I hadn't been racing that much and hadn't raced in Charlotte and hadn't done a green flag pit stop, at least in a cup car, and God knows how long. And it took me 3 times. I came down trying to pit under green 3 different times, and it was too fast, and so he had to post me.
And when they post you, when he says posted, that means you
they
go to the back.
black flag me.
Okay.
And make me come back down pit road again. And so the
Put
next
you a lap
week,
down, right?
Oh, yeah. I went several. I had to come down under green flag pit stop 3 different times.
Wow.
But the next weekend, wherever we were, maybe Texas, happened when I was working for Fox Sports then doing TV. And I saw him in the elevator or somewhere at the racetrack, and he said, man, I really didn't want to do that, but 3 times. I said, was that a record? He said, actually, it's not. I said, well, I should have tried harder the 4th time. So probably the 4th time coming down pit road, I was running like 4 miles an hour.
He had a lot of good stories about you. And he's Bob Dillner, who, of course, was Speed 51's voice for a long time. Now, the voice of the Smart Series, taking over from Eric, who used to announce. He went on to the Cars Tour. And, I was giving, you'll see in this next segment, and the setup is this. When he announced the race, he would call the Sadler Stanley race team owned by or co-owned by Hermie Sadler, but never say my name.
Yeah.
Never say Sadler Senator or Sadler Stanley. So when I get him in there, we tease him a lot. Both that was planned just to give him a lot of crap about not saying my name, but only saying your name, Hermie. But he said he knew you from, I guess, Speed Channel.
Yeah.
And had some really nice things to talk about. And so they're going to talk about the Smart Series. They're going to talk about their past. But that Bob Dillner, I'm going to tell you right now, he's like the Charles Kuralt. Remember On the Road Again with Charles Kuralt on CBS News? He's like the Charles Kuralt of short track racing. And he's got this company. He's got this website page, Short Track Life. You should go check it out. He's got some great stories. And just the way he talks about short track racing just kind of epitomizes what you and I are trying to do, making sure we're bringing all the short track racing back to life, grow it from the grassroots up, help our small businesses in those areas and the rural areas where these tracks are, and make sure that they're a part of our sport now and in the future. So you're about to hear a great interview after we finish up this first segment with those 3 gentlemen, and it should be a lot of fun. But we've got some things to talk about, Herm.
We do.
We got a lot of things. First, how do we do in the race? We went to Richmond on Friday.
Yeah.
It was rained out. We raced on Saturday afternoon. We had 2 racers down to 1, and then we raced at South Boston.
Yeah, Mother Nature hadn't been playing nice with the Smart Tour, and Mother Nature threw us a curveball last Friday night at Richmond with the NASCAR Wheeling Tour. You know, we took both cars, Bobby Labonte and Ryan Newman. They both qualified right inside the top 10.
Yeah.
Both our cars were really good. Well, you know, you and I knew from the beginning that Ryan Newman, as much as we love having him in the car, as much as he loves racing, he's got a daughter that's racing karts, and rightfully so has to tend to her when schedules kind of interfere with each other.
Yeah, and we agree with that priority. We think family comes first,
No question. Yep. So Saturday, you know, the both cars qualified Friday night. The race was supposed to be Friday night. Got rained out, so on Saturday, Ryan had to go back home and tend to his daughter, and with her racing at Millbridge, she raced on Saturday and raced again on Sunday. Ryan called me actually Sunday, and we talked about his daughter's racing, and he thanked both you and I for being understanding and supportive of what he's doing with his kids, which we all get that.
Yeah.
And we support that. And then I tell you, Bobby Labonte ran great at Richmond.
He did.
He started just inside the top 10. Drove under green flag, drove up inside the top 5, had a little snafu on the pit stop, wasn't great, drove back up to a 6th place finish at Richmond, so that was a great day for us. And then went to South Boston for the race on Saturday night.
And wait, in Richmond, he finished a lot better this time than he did last year. Or wait, he raced in Martinsville, didn't he?
Yeah, that's right.
That's right. And Ryan Newman raced in Richmond the year before.
That's right.
And he came in like, what, top 3?
Well, he led a lot, but they broke. Remember, the spoiler broke on Newman's car, and so we lost a lap, and then never got a chance to change and put our last set of tires on to get the finish we needed. It finished right outside the top 10, but led a lot. But Bobby called me because we had to. You know, so the Richmond race ended up being Saturday afternoon, started like 4:30.
Yeah.
Bobby ran that race, and then you arranged a police escort for him to get across Virginia.
Let's say observance. Through the counties, making sure that he was safely delivered from Richmond
not like a
South
Smokey
Boston.
the Bandit type situation.
No, there was no blue lights in front, blue lights in back.
Yeah.
But just to make sure all racers that were coming from Richmond
it was other teams, drivers, and crew members. And so everybody got to South Boston. Ultimately, so at South Boston, since Ryan was occupied with his daughter racing, we had Bobby Labonte and Jonathan Cash, which, you know, everybody knows Bobby Labonte, but Jonathan Cash, just to give a history, he drove for us at Hickory last year, but he is a longtime friend of mine, a great late model stock racer in his own right, and one of the best, well-known, most accomplished go-kart racers in the country. Mm-hmm. And he's also an engine builder. He does tire programs for kids and things of that nature, but he's a great racer. And you and I and Pace-O-Matic have given him an opportunity to fill in for some of these races when Ryan Newman is not available. And Bobby Labonte, he was behind the 8 ball getting to South Boston because he had to start in the rear because he was not there in time to qualify. But Jonathan Cash qualified 6th, I believe, and got out front in the first 15, 20 laps and led.
Wasn't there a point where he was leading? I mean, he was charging out to the front.
Yeah.
And Phil Stefanelli
told him, calm down. You know, you have to save your tires.
Right.
But I'm going to tell you,
you only get to change one.
You only get to change one. And Jonathan got up on the high side and went right to the front.
Yeah.
It was so pretty to watch.
It was.
But he came back from some adversity. They had, in the same wreck that Bobby Labonte got tied up in, there was a cut tire on the car, left rear tire, car spun. Everybody jumbled up. It put Bobby out for the night, did significant damage to his car, but Cash had some front bumper damage, and actually the front bumper was pushed over into the left front tire. So Cash came down pit road, and we fixed that, had to go all the way to the back again, and then he drove back up and finished 4th, and really the last 30 laps had the fastest car on the track.
Yeah.
By the time he got back up to 4th and fighting for 2nd and 3rd, the 15 car, Lofton, which congratulations to him.
Yeah.
He had the right strategy and the fast car at the end. By the time Cash got his track position back, the 15 was gone. But Cash finished top 5, and for only his 2nd ever open wheel modified race. I mean, he qualified well, ran great, and we look forward to getting Cash back in the car soon.
He's fun to watch. He really is. He's very methodical as he works his way through the crowd.
He's got that eye of the tiger, that fire in his belly. He was, gutted over a fourth place finish because he knows he's only getting limited opportunities, and he wanted to win.
So we got a sixth place finish with Bobby Labonte, who ran great in the open wheel modified NASCAR Richmond race. We got a fourth place finish with
Jonathan Cash
in the Smart Series race.
Yeah.
And
by the way, Cash has only run 2 races. He got top 10 in both races.
That's pretty amazing.
So actually,
what do you see? What do you see for the Sadler Stanley race team moving forward? I mean, we've got a race not this weekend, of course. It's Easter weekend.
Yep.
But we got one at Hickory next weekend.
Yeah.
You and I have had a moment at Hickory. We're going to see if we can do better. Who's driving? Is it Cash again?
No, it'll be Newman and Labonte at Hickory.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. And ladies and gentlemen, if you want to watch the Smart Series Tour, which is great through South Carolina, North Carolina, and Virginia, go on Flow Racing. Get the membership there. You go right on there. You can see everything that is the Smart Tour. It's really well done. And Bob Dillner is a great announcer. As much grief as I give him in the second segment, he's a great announcer. It's something you really want to watch because it's real racing. It's grassroots racing. It's exciting to watch in person. And if you can, come to one of those in-person races. Let us know you're coming, and we'll give you the best kind of hospitality we possibly can, show you a good time. Now, I want to talk about something. I want to talk about the events that's going on with your campaign. Give us a rundown. I mean, how you doing on the campaign? You got all your signatures in?
Yeah, we're on the ballot. That part of it's done. I told you I was at a meeting today, making a deal with a group to assist us with our door knocking ground game to supplement what me personally and my team and my family are doing across the district. And now business is going to pick up. We know we're in a primary. My opponent has done several mailers, unfortunately, some of which advertised or promoted a convention that we're not having.
Right.
But business for us is getting ready to pick up. We've got May 5th early voting, so we've got less than a month before early voting starts, and then, till June 20th, it'll be here before we know it, the primary. So we've got everything just really ramping up right now, and especially next week, we've got a lot of work to do.
You're a little gassy.
I am a little gassy, as Haley would say.
But Lee Talley, who, of course, Harry Talley's a great fan of the Smart Series, the Sadler Stanley Racing Team.
He was at the race at Richmond Friday night.
So was Lee Talley. We loved having him there. That was great. Miss Haley.
And just so you know, Harry is on the spectrum, autism spectrum, as is my daughter Haley. We took a picture with him together in his suite at Richmond Friday night, which was great.
That was special. But Lee sent me something that's been going around. So what I understand, and then, of course, brought to your attention, was that there was a push poll, what we call in politics a push poll going on with your opponent right now.
Yep.
Clearly, and so you and I know, because you asked me what are these things, and because you have not been in politics before. You were running as a citizen who wants to become a legislator.
I'm learning on the fly.
That's pretty amazing, as we talk about it too. But push polls are basically, for those that may not know, if they're not in politics all the time, are polls that are really incendiary and ask really kind of slanted questions in order to get the right answer.
Slanted?
Yeah, kind of like if you knew that Hermie Sadler had a 6th toe on his right foot, would that make you more likely or less likely to vote for you? And so, because you want to skew the result.
Yeah.
Usually those push polls come out and they're electronic. They can be, you can hit you get a text and you go and do the poll, or they call you. It is because you've already run a poll beforehand and it's not looking good for you. So you've got to poison the well a little bit, have a second poll that's a little better that you can go take to donors and say, see, look, I'm in the lead. And they use that in that way to try to manipulate outcomes, and they also manipulate the process. So Lee Talley sent me a push poll that we had in the 17th Senate District race. You've seen it now, right?
I have by now, yes.
Okay. So a push poll asks a number of questions.
This was sent out by my opponent, just to be clear.
We'll kind of figure that out by the questions. I'm going to read you these questions, okay? Yeah. So, of course, the poll starts out with the first introductory questions. When I hear sirens, I want to go throw cards out. All right, anyway.
Fire truck.
That's the lawyer in me.
We got a bad storm going on.
We do, and I've got to drive back to Franklin County in the middle of it, and then that doesn't look good because they're going in the same direction on 58 that I'll be going on. But the first questions were, do you plan on voting in the Republican primary election for Virginia State Senate this June? Yes, no, unsure. Would you say things in Virginia are headed in the right direction, have gone off the rails, or have gone off in the wrong track? Right direction, wrong track, unsure. That's setting up to find out what kind of person is actually participating in the votes. These are the intro.
Just questions. To be clear, the people they target for who would a firm that is doing a push poll, who would they target for this, and how do they get the survey to the person?
So they're going to go through the voter lists, and they're going to see who's been voting in primaries. That's your primary list of the people that you go and try to sway first. They're usually your dependable voters. They're the ones that you can gauge to see what the mindset is of the general Republicans in those districts. So these introductory questions are, is Virginia on the right track or the wrong track? What's your opinion of Governor Youngkin? What's your opinion of former President Donald Trump? From that, they then determine what kind of voter I'm looking at. Am I talking about a Trump supporter when we're getting this information, or just a regular Virginia voter, conservative voter? Exactly. So then the next question on this push poll is, what's your opinion of Emily Brewer? Favorable, unfavorable, unsure. The next question after that, Herm, was, what is your opinion of Hermie Sadler? Favorable, unfavorable, favorable, unsure. These are normal questions that you would have in any kind of poll, that anybody would call you up and you'd answer the phone, you'd answer these questions. Next question, again, is a normal poll question. The next question was, if the primary election for Virginia State Senate was held today, who would you vote for? Emily Brewer, Hermie Sadler, or undecided? Seems normal, doesn't it?
So far, yep.
Okay. And so then you see, pardon me, the next questions start getting into what we call the push part. Governor Youngkin's agenda, let's see, the question is, Emily Brewer is a conservative we can trust to pass Governor Youngkin's agenda and has worked with him in Richmond to cut taxes and get results for Virginia. Does knowing this make you more likely or less likely to vote for Emily Brewer? And your selections are more likely, less likely, makes no difference.
Right.
Now I think you know who this poll's from, right?
Right.
Because Emily Brewer, according to her, has been working on Youngkin's agenda, has worked with him to cut taxes. Well, so far we don't have much in cut taxes. I'm just going to tell you.
Anything related to actually what happened in the General Assembly, I'll let you
is different.
Kick in on that, because you know more about that.
Here come the questions now on the push poll.
Okay.
Hermie Sadler opposes important legislation Glenn Youngkin signed into law, and even sued to stop the governor from enacting his agenda for Virginia. Does knowing this make you more likely or less likely to vote for Hermie Sadler? Answers are more likely, less likely, or makes no difference.
Yeah.
So let's just break that down a little bit.
Okay.
All right. Hermie Sadler opposes important legislation Glenn Youngkin signed into law. Can you tell me which, Mr. Sadler, can you tell me exactly what important legislation Glenn Youngkin has signed into law, which would have to have been last year or just this year, that you have opposed?
None. Zero. Zilch. Nada.
0.0.
0.0.
Blue toss. Dean Wilmer. Yeah, I mean, okay, this is a ridiculous question.
Yeah.
And so you are answering right now for us here in podcast world, here on Leaning Right and Turning Left with Sadler and the Senator, that you have not opposed any important legislation Glenn Youngkin signed into law, even though she says you have.
0.0.
All right. And now it's a two-part question.
Okay.
In this push poll. And even Hermie Sadler even sued to stop the governor from enacting his agenda for Virginia. Can you tell me
She's insinuating I sued Glenn Youngkin.
You sued, well, right now he's taken the role from Governor Northam in the Skill Games lawsuit, which we've been very successful.
Right.
Can you tell me where Glenn Youngkin, our governor, has enacted an agenda that says hurt small business and stop skill games? I've been a lawyer all day, so you're going to have to answer these cross-examination questions. Let me help you with that. Okay. I know that Governor Youngkin's office has supported skill games and wanted a quote-unquote level playing field.
We've both been told that by the governor's office.
Correct.
Yes.
So I don't remember that being his agenda to ban skill games and hurt small business. Do you?
Right. I do not. And by the way, the lawsuit that we filed against Ralph Northam and Mark Herring, if we have to remind everybody of this,
and we should,
Democrats, that has kept hundreds of small businesses across the Commonwealth of Virginia open, operating, and thriving coming out of a pandemic, and potentially kept them from going to jail and
for operating those games.
Mm-hmm.
Games of skill, not games of chance.
The court of law on, I think, at least 3 different occasions has ruled that law that we filed a lawsuit against is unconstitutional.
You are exactly right, Hermie Sadler. As your lawyer, and are you involved in any litigation where I'm not your lawyer?
No.
And I can tell you that from this, Hermie Sadler does not oppose important legislation that Governor Youngkin signed into law, and even sued to stop the governor from enacting his agenda for Virginia is an absolute lie. On Maury Povich, the lie detector determined that was a lie.
It's sad.
And of course, the question is, does knowing this lie make you more or less likely to vote for Emily Brewer?
Yep.
More likely, less likely makes no difference. You would think they could stop there, don't you? But they don't.
You would think.
They don't. The next question. Emily Brewer is a proven conservative who is A+ NRA rated and stood up for the police when the liberal activists and BLM attacked our dedicated police officers across Virginia. Does knowing this make you more likely or less likely to vote for Emily Brewer? More likely, less likely, or makes no difference are your choices.
But only if that were true. Because we have information that we've gathered. And let me just say this, Bill.
This is...
Let me just say this.
Yeah, please.
It was my hope that Emily Brewer and I could have a spirited primary campaign based on the issues and giving her and I both the opportunity to actually tell the people of the 17th district what our ideas are to make your life better. And obviously you can tell by these questions and other things that her and her team have done that they're not interested in that. But I go back to the Second Amendment part. We have information on statements she's made and votes that she's made that she supported red flag laws and other things that Obama pushed for gun control. And that's okay. But
it's not okay.
You can't do it and say this in a poll.
Right. You can't say you're miss Second Amendment when in fact that you say red flag laws and other gun control laws that President Obama supported are good for the Commonwealth as well for the nation.
Right.
So the lie detector determined that was a lie. Here's another. You'd think it'd end there, Herm. Does it end there? No.
Fred, not.
No. Emily Brewer worked hard for Donald Trump in 2016 in support of Donald Trump's presidential campaign. Campaigned for Donald Trump and is an America First conservative. Does knowing this make you more likely or less likely to vote for Emily Brewer? If it was true, I would be more likely to vote for Emily Brewer. Sorry there, Herm. But I know it's not true because I've listened to podcasts done back in the past where, quite frankly, I think it's demonstrated and will be demonstrated in the future that she supported John Kasich, that liberal from Ohio, that
who
governor,
ultimately endorsed Hillary Clinton
and would not vote for Donald Trump.
Right.
And in fact, there are probably some recordings out there where she said saying anything nice about Donald Trump might have to make her drink. So Maury Povich, the lie detector determined that was a lie too. The next question was...
It's not over yet?
No, I'm sorry. There's a lot of these. As a small business owner and mother, Emily Brewer is working diligently to protect our children's future by ensuring a strong and vibrant economy focused on job creation. Does knowing this make you more or less likely to vote for Emily Brewer? Well, that's a positive statement. She is a new mother. That's great. We love that. You and I have kids. We know what it takes to do there. And we hope that she's diligently working to protect our children's future, ensuring a strong and vibrant economy focused on job creation. Our children's future does rely on the economy, but also education, quite frankly.
Sure.
And if you recall, while this is a nice statement about Emily Brewer, and the questions has the answers of would that make you more likely or less likely to vote for Emily Brewer, more likely, less likely, or makes no difference. However, my bill that would have brought robotics teams and paid for those teams scholarships for those schools that are at or below the poverty level or cannot afford because of where they are in rural areas or inner cities to start their own robotics teams that are naturally occurring in the more vibrant areas of Northern Virginia and Hampton Roads was killed in the House Committee of Appropriations. And the person voting against it, staring at me as she voted against it, was none other than
Emily Brewer.
Emily Brewer.
And I go back to her part about...
Oh, and didn't you give money to the Franklin robotics team where when she promised to help them and then killed my bill?
She used the kids in the robotics program for a photo op at the Southampton County Fair last year and told them and the sponsor of the robotics program at Franklin High School how much she looked forward to helping them. And then when she had a chance to help them, she didn't. But now she has said that the money for that bill was not in the budget, but you have a different story of that.
Not
right?
only a different story, it's been in the budget since I put it in the budget for a one-off scholarship fund that I was trying to make permanent, that these kids came to me that were in robotics teams, wanted to make robotics available for all children throughout the Commonwealth. We put the bill in. That's exactly what the bill was. The money was already there. Glenn Davis knew it was there. Everybody knows it was already there in the budget. And quite frankly, I bet when the budget comes out, it'll still be in there. She also then says in the next question, this is more pro Emily, that she's a child of adoption, which is great.
Yes, great. Yeah.
I mean, she's really worked hard to,
Yep.
and I'm sure her parents
And I
are
applaud
great.
that.
Yeah, that's
I applaud
awesome.
that.
Has always stood up for life and protecting the unborn. Let's hope everybody in this race are. What's your position on life and the unborn?
Well, every life is sacred to me. I have 3 daughters. You and I have had this conversation about my 3 daughters. My middle daughter is special needs. I'm a pro-life candidate, and I will always protect life.
Amen, brother. Let's go to the more fun
that shouldn't be something that, as fellow Republicans, conservatives, that
you should not disagree on.
should not disagree on.
There
that.
should be life begins at conception.
Yep.
We need to protect life. That's God's word. You're a Christian, I know.
Yep.
A very strong Christian. We talk about these things all the time offline when we're not recording. And that's that. Here comes more questions, though. Page 5 of 9. I'm sorry, we have a little bit more to do. The next question is, Hermie Sadler has given thousands of dollars to radical Democrats who push the anti-police agenda, and he opposed raises for our Virginia police officers. Does knowing that make you more or less likely to vote for Hermie Sadler? Answer is more likely, less likely, makes no difference. Let's break that down real quick. You've given thousands of dollars to radical Democrats who push an anti-police agenda?
0.0.
Blutowski.
I don't know. Her team has been kind of insinuating or pushing this narrative ever since I announced I was running.
Yeah.
So I don't know who they've got me confused with, but my name is Herman M. Sadler III, or Hermie Sadler. My wife is Angela Slate Sadler, and neither of us have ever donated money to a Democrat, despite the fact that as business owners for the last 20 years, all we've had is Democratic control in the local and state level. But the answer to that is an emphatic no.
Hey, you gave money to my campaign.
I did.
Yeah.
And by the way, if you want to go back and do your research, Angie and I, the last cycle, donated about $15,000, with $10,000 being donated directly to the Republican caucus.
We thank you for that.
Yep.
What about the second part? You oppose raises for our Virginia police officers.
That may be the most absurd comment that I've heard from all of this, because I live in a small town. You know that I spent probably 25 years of my life on the road traveling with 4 women at home, a wife and 3 kids. I've always depended on and supported law enforcement to look after my family and my businesses.
Right.
Convenience stores and truck stops, always have, always will.
You have relationships with all the sheriffs, I can tell you, all throughout Southside
Sheriff
Virginia.
Timmy Jarrett from right here in Greensville County was in my commercials that we've already rolled out one, that
Sheriff
2 or 3
Steve
more.
Draper loves you from the city of
Steve
Martinsville.
Draper from Martinsville.
Yeah.
Brian Roberts from Brunswick County.
Yep.
Josh Weiss over in Southampton County. And on top of all that, recently, remember, we had your great friend Bill Carrico, former state trooper, head of the State Police Association, and I donated money to them.
Yeah. Well,
After the thing. But
so this is not a true statement that you oppose raises for our Virginia police officers.
that is absurd.
In fact, we have to raise them. I sponsor raises in the budget
got
every year.
to-
And guess who's in the middle of the conferees of the budget when these things are cut down or eliminated?
Emily Brewer.
That's exactly right.
We have to give our law enforcement people a better pool of people to choose from. So they have to have the resources to get a better starting candidate and more money and resources for proper training
And retention.
We have to. Timmy Jarrett, my sheriff right here, I talk to him almost every day. Talked to him 30 minutes ago today. He used to keep 40 or 50 applications on file for candidates all the time. He has no applications
It's amazing.
on file.
And that's across the board.
Across the board.
I mean, you have an 11 to 18% attrition rate. That means people that are on staff leave every year and you're not able to fill them.
Yeah.
Academies have lower quality candidates because you can't find the best and the brightest, the higher candidate to put in there because we're not paying them enough. That's why I put in a budget amendment every year in the Senate to raise our salaries for the police. Will you join me in raising their salaries?
100%. 100%. And that's what I don't understand, Bill. As a candidate running for office, I understand I want people to vote for me. Emily Brewer wants people to vote for her. But why sit there and make a bald-faced lie about who I've donated money to? But even worse than that, to insinuate with all the friendships and the relationships that I have with law enforcement officials all across this district. I deal with them all through my businesses. I have small businesses in every corner of this district, and they patrol my places for me. Mm-hmm. And I talk to them
as
and
they
support
do for
them.
all small business.
Sure they do.
Yeah,
sure
because
they do.
want a safe society.
So that pisses me off.
All right, let's. I've just begun to read these, but we're going to hustle through the best we can. Here's the next one. Hermie Sadler is a never Trumper. He opposed Donald Trump in 2016 and even opposed Donald Trump in 2020. We can't trust Hermie to stand up for our values. Does knowing this make you more or less likely to vote for Hermie Sadler? Answers more likely, less likely. Makes no difference. So let's break that down quickly. You're a never Trumper?
I voted for Donald Trump in 2016 and 2020.
And I can attest, you and I have had these conversations offline. We talk about the policies. We may, as every Republican do, tell them sometimes you don't have to tweet all that every time. But that doesn't make you a never Trumper. Did you ever support John Kasich?
No.
I must tell you, I was a Trump supporter, but I supported, was the co-chairman of the Ted Cruz for President Virginia campaign. Mm-hmm. Does that make me a never Trumper? I don't think so.
Shouldn't. No.
Okay.
But
you never were like that. Did you oppose Donald Trump in 2020?
I did not oppose him. I really thought in 2016, I really thought we needed somebody to unite. But as I realized, and I've told you this before, I used to not quite understand Trump's aggressive nature as far as hitting back and protecting himself and fighting back against the swamp and the fake news. I just said, we got to have a uniter. But I quickly realized that we needed a fighter.
And he's right.
And I would take him back as president right now because the lives of small business owners and the families that work and own and operate small businesses have gotten worse by a lot in the last 3 years with Sleepy Joe in the White House.
And so the lie detector here determined that was a lie too. Next question you're going to love. It's a doozy. This is really going below the belt. Literally and figuratively. The next question on this push poll put out by the Emily Brewer campaign is the following question. The average family in Greensville makes less than $22,500 a year. Hermie Sadler spent that in a single night at a Las Vegas strip club. He doesn't reflect our Christian values and doesn't understand working families. Does knowing this make you more or less likely to vote for Hermie Sadler? Answers more likely, less likely, and makes no difference. The person who answered this poll took a picture and sent it to me, put in more likely, but I don't think they understood the question. The question is that basically it's saying Hermie Sadler spent $22,000 in a single night at a Las Vegas strip club. True or untrue?
Untrue.
Why would they say this? I know why.
I don't know. Well,
they're trying to fire up Christians against you.
They're trying to rally the troops to find something to. But I told this story on this podcast several months ago. Mm-hmm. Probably 10 or so years ago, we were in Vegas for the race. Afterwards, we had an event at a place called Jet at Bellagio. It is not a strip club. It is a normal club that they have at the casinos in Vegas, DJ, all that. And not only were we there with our sponsors, but also Charles Barkley, Mark Cuban, Vince Vaughn, a bunch of people that we were spending time with in Vegas at that time. And at the end of the night, everybody walked off, went back to the car to leave and left me there. You know how you have people you go to dinner with and they stick you with the bill from time to time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they got the alligator on.
Yeah. So my quote-unquote friends stuck me with the bill for the night there at Jet at Bellagio. And so I don't
Lord,
remember
Angie
the
must have been
exact number, but the reason why we told the story, and it was funny, and you and I were laughing with Angie about it before we started taping.
Yes.
I gave her my credit card to pay the bill. It was not $22,000, but it was expensive. So as soon as I ran the credit card, the security detail of the credit card processor called Angie, which was 3 hours. So if it's 1:30 in Vegas, it's 4:30 in the morning in Emporia. And the security people woke her up to approve a very expensive bill.
That alone had to be quite a discussion when you got home.
It was quite a discussion, but we laugh about it now. But
Was it a strip club?
no,
Were there any strippers there?
No.
Were there any scantily clad women there?
no.
What would have happened if, in fact, you had spent that kind of money at a strip club and it showed up on your credit card? And Angie, who pays all the credit card bills, who does all the financing.
Angie, come here. We got to ask you a question.
All right. Well, I'm guessing right now that Angie would not have tolerated that at all.
I would still be living in Vegas.
You would be living in a trailer down by the river, would you not?
Yeah.
All right. So that's a ridiculous.
But why? Why would they? Why would they?
Well, but here's the kick. You don't reflect, your life doesn't reflect our Christian values, and you don't understand working families. One, I know that you've accepted Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior.
Yeah.
We talk about our family
Sure.
faith all the time, but also family values. You've raised 3 beautiful kids. You've employed families in your businesses.
Yeah.
I mean, and I've said this on the podcast, I've said it to you personally, everything you do is about giving people chances and helping families and keeping families
try to be.
together and making sure they're making a good living and raising your kids the right way. Because I jealously lament that your kids are so loyal, so faithful, so loving, even in their older years. And it's because of how you raised them. Yeah. And it's really a testament. I'm not just saying that because we're on a podcast or that we're friends. It's something I've said to my wife that I really, I'm not jealous, but admirable. And I admire greatly based on
I got
that.
3 great kids, and my family, my entire family takes pride in employing and supporting the hundreds, over 300 employees, which if you take
And their family.
in their families, if you say somebody's got a spouse and 2 kids, 1,200 people
Yeah.
estimated that I'm responsible for, or our team or our company is responsible for. And, my dad especially, and me too, I'm not going to get on this podcast and spell out everything that we do for other families,
Right.
whether they work for us or not.
Yeah, you're under the radar on many things.
I mean, I can lay my head on the pillow at night, and look, Bill, I know how blessed I am, and I know how important it is for people like my family that can help to actually do it. Yeah. And we do that all the time. We're proud to, we'll continue to, regardless of what Emily Brewer or her team wants to try to throw at me. I couldn't care less, because the fact of the matter is, really and truly, the people that know us.
And that's what's
and important. The people that don't, if they really and truly believe all that stuff, I do not expect or want them to vote for me.
Okay. Well, it keeps going. We got a couple more to go through.
Oh, God.
I'm sorry.
I thought that was the grand
we've
finale.
determined that was a lie, that you
I
you
thought
did
that was
not
the grand finale.
spend that kind of money.
No.
That you have Christian values and that you have family
I have
values.
not spent $22,000 in a strip club in Las Vegas.
That's ridiculous. So that is a lie. That the lie detector determined, Maury, that was a lie. Next question. Hermie Sadler was raised with a silver spoon and now makes a living suing small businesses and ruining the livelihoods of entrepreneurs. Does knowing this make you more likely or less likely to vote for Hermie Sadler? Answers more likely, less likely, or makes no difference. The answer of this poll put in more likely. But let's attack this and unpack this as best we can. Were you raised with a silver spoon?
What is the definition of a silver spoon?
I don't know. I guess that means, like you were like a rich kid, that you didn't have to work for anything, which is not true.
No, I wouldn't say that at all.
In fact, didn't you, when you and Angie got married, you didn't work for Sadler, old brother.
Yeah.
And that's a business your dad built from his father, right?
That's right.
On his own small business, which
I
employs, just like you said, all these
graduated
people.
from college, moved to South Hill, signed my first NASCAR Busch Grand National Series driving contract with Don Beverly Racing in the summer of 1992, and signed a contract with General Motors, a racing contract with General Motors. Along about the same time, Sadler Auto Center of South Hill became available. The people with General Motors, going back to a guy that I still think of highly to this day named Mark Ritter, that used to work for General Motors, helped me not only purchase Sadler Auto Center of South Hill, but helped me line up the fundraising. So from the time I got married in 1996, all the way through, I've made my own money working for independent people in the racing industry, other teams, and Fox Sports and PRN and all these other places. But I don't have to explain myself or justify myself to Emily Brewer.
I know. But here, let's dive into this one. In the push poll that we were going over, for those maybe just joining us or skipping ahead, still on this ridiculous push poll, we're giving fact to what is turning out to be a bunch of lies. But the second part of this question was that you make a living suing small businesses and ruining livelihoods of entrepreneurs. True or untrue?
Bill, you're my lawyer.
Correct.
So
I'm wondering, are you cheating on me with another lawyer? You have one lawsuit against the state helping small businesses and entrepreneurs maintain their convenience stores, truck stops, restaurants,
and those small business owners are eternally grateful to the
100% behind you. Call us all the time. Follow this podcast.
Yes.
Ask how they can help, and have certainly been a big.
You can verify it, but what I'm telling you and the listener of this podcast and Emily Brewer is that I'm involved in the litigation against the Commonwealth of Virginia as it relates to the unconstitutional ban of skill games and government overreach into small business that, by the way, she, as a conferee on the Appropriations Committee, sided with casinos and out-of-state special interest to support them and turn her back on the small businesses of the Commonwealth
and
of
actually
Virginia.
Rewrite the code inside the budget, as you may have heard from earlier podcasts,
and slid it through there.
And we had to go fight that again. Had to have a court for the third time declare their ban unconstitutional.
The only litigation I'm involved in is the one you and I are involved in, Bill, with the skill game litigation. I have no idea what the hell they're talking about.
I thought you were cheating on me with another lawyer.
I have.
Thank God. Yeah, I mean, you're not. In fact, you look at me all the time and say, I'm not litigious. I do not want to fight in a court of law. I want to work things out. Litigation was last resort in the case against skill games when you fought for the little guy.
I came to see you and every other legislator over there for 2.5 years.
And there's no other lawsuit that you've ever filed against any small business owner or entrepreneur. Is that right?
That's right.
In fact, have you ever profited from the existing lawsuit that's going on other than keeping the skill games on for your business?
No.
Okay. So that, ladies and gentlemen, according to Maury Povich's lie detector,
I'm going to say it one more time.
That was a lie.
The litigation, the only litigation that me or my family is involved in is the skill game litigation that you and I filed against the Commonwealth of Virginia
for other people.
Protect the rights of small businesses and entrepreneurs and their families.
Amen, brother. Okay, I got one question left because the rest then goes into, and I'll show you what's going on and why this is.
I would hope if somebody's actually reading this, there's not a chance in hell they'll vote for me if they believe.
Good Lord. I was starting to go over and support somebody else, man. You're crazy. Last question. Hermie Sadler cut a deal with radical liberal leader Louise Lucas to help his campaign instead of putting Virginia conservative values first. Does knowing this make you more likely or less likely to vote for the dreaded Hermie Sadler? What the hell is she talking about?
I got nothing.
I mean, you know Louise.
I got nothing. I know very
Louise.
well. Yeah. And the only relationship as it relates to politics or policy or legislation, I went to Richmond to speak with her to argue against minimum wage mandates for small businesses, protecting small businesses, because Emily's people,
not according to this push
the
poll.
Democrats want to be able to stand on the front page of the Richmond Times-Dispatch and say, look, I got you $15 an hour, whether you will get out of bed and go to work or not.
Or whether they can pay it or not.
Right. Doesn't matter. I went and advocated against that. And then I went to see her prior to me filing a lawsuit, the one we just discussed about skill games, because Janet Howell had spewed some information on the Senate floor related to skill games and their effect on the Virginia lottery that I thought was inaccurate. And I went to see Louise about that.
Right.
And then I sent her some emails over the years advocating against gas and fuel taxes and some other things like that. But I encourage Emily Brewer and her team to call Louise Lucas or her team or her campaign and please let me know what kind of deal I cut with Louise Lucas to help my campaign and go against whatever. What is the rest of that crazy?
Hermie Sadler cut a deal with radical liberal leader Louise Lucas to help his campaign instead of putting Virginia conservative values first.
It's just absurd, Bill. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I know we're trying to make light of some of this stuff.
That's really what this is about.
Really, it's sad.
It is sad because, then look, in a push poll, you're trying to create opinions that may not be there or change opinions that already may be for you, Hermie Sadler.
Yeah.
And so when you look at the bottom of the push poll, it says, now, knowing what you know now, if the primary election in Virginia State Senate was held today, who would you vote for? Emily Brewer, Hermie Sadler, or undecided? So they're trying to almost push people towards her because otherwise they know they're scared they can't get them to vote for her. What you do in a push poll is also when you have a crappy ass poll that you don't want to release to your donors, you do a push poll, then you cloud out what the questions were, and you say, "Hey, see how we're doing now? We're doing a lot better." The last question of any importance is, if Governor Youngkin endorsed Emily Brewer, would that make you more likely or less likely to vote for her? More likely, less likely, no difference. So what they're even insinuating there is somehow Governor Youngkin likes her, doesn't like you, which he's not come out and endorsed. I don't know that he will. Don't care, really. I don't think that matters. Endorsements, as you and I have both said in prior podcasts, really don't matter because what the governor thinks of you really doesn't matter. It's what the people who go and vote.
The endorsement of the people that are going to go in the ballot box and vote on June 20th is the endorsements I'm concerned about.
Hermie Sadler, welcome to your first push poll, which means, quite frankly, in my mind, and I've seen your polling numbers, and I told you offline, they look great for a starter candidate. They look really good. That's probably what's scaring them. Welcome to your first push poll.
Yeah.
Where the absurd, and I had a push poll where the Democrats were after me. It never was this bad.
Yeah.
And I think I've told you this, and I've told other people this at meetings that I go to. Our problem has been that we fight each other more at a lower level and more harshly than we ever fight the Democrats. We're better at fighting ourselves, and that's what causes us to lose. If you want to run on issues, run on issues. Hermie, I'm going to tell you right now, because you have facts, and you're going to have to bring them out, especially when she's saying what she's saying about you, about what her positions are. But let's run on the issues, because what you're doing is poisoning people from ever wanting to come out and vote for either one of you.
Let me say something, and this is recorded on this podcast, so it'll be saved in the archives of Leaning Right and Turning Left with Sadler and the Senator forever and ever.
Ever and ever.
But let me just tell you this. If I get elected as the senator for the 17th District of Virginia this November, and I join you in the General Assembly, and I represent the 17th District for 4 years, after those 4 years, if I have to come out and do some shit like this to make people think my opponent that may be running against me is not the person they say they are, or try to dismiss or discredit, or if I don't have a good enough record with my constituents to run on, that I can run on the record and what I have accomplished and how I have represented my constituents. Because that's what Emily Brewer has done. She has been in the House of Delegates.
Yeah.
And still, she herself does not think that she's got a strong enough record of accomplishment
that she's besmirching your character. Yeah, that seems to be plain here. And what she should do, actually, if she wants to run a fair race and get respect from people that support you, or the independents, or the people that haven't made a decision, is denounce this poll. That's the honorable thing to do. This is disgusting. This is something that's aimed not at you and your reputation that you've worked so hard on being the good guy, but also attacks your family.
Yep.
I mean, how low are we going here? How low is too low?
Yeah.
If this is the opening for them.
Yeah.
And that concerns me. Now, we at this podcast do not endorse you as a candidate.
Right.
We allow you to talk about your campaign. She wants to come on here. She's welcome to do it. There's a lot of podcast recordings that I think some people should listen to. We played a little bit of that in last week's podcast when she announced that she was a moderate Republican from Virginia.
About a month ago.
She's now claiming she's a conservative.
About a month ago, her and I both spoke at a GOP meeting in Alawite. And while she was speaking, she referenced what I've heard a couple times. Ronald Reagan's 11th commandment. Never talk negatively about a fellow Republican. She brought it up and talked about it at the meeting in Alawite.
And now you get this.
And now I get this.
Well, Hermie, I know this is the phrase that you hate from me. Welcome to politics.
Yeah.
But you know what? Stay above the fray. And I think, I heard part of what Senator Bill Carrico and Senator Bryce Reeves were telling you. Man, character and integrity are the things that matter most. And that's what a voter, I think, will gravitate towards, especially in a nominating contest. There are political consultants that everybody hires that says, you got to go negative. You got to go negative. And that ruins the process. And again, when you go negative against a Republican, it drags down both of you, so you're weak and injured going into the general election, where a guy like Clint Jenkins has been untouched, running on who am I, what do I stand for, what am I going to do for you?
Yeah.
And so I think this ultimately, if I'm looking at it as a politician who has served as a unit chairman, congressional district chairman for 4 years, and the honor of being a senator for over 10, this is just not a good.
You know what this is to me, and it's sad.
And please don't do this.
You know what?
Don't do this, right?
You know what it says to me?
Yeah.
That if she can't win the nomination, it sounds like she would rather the Democrats have the control of the seat.
That's very sad. And let me tell you something, and I've said this 100 times. The seat doesn't belong to any one politician. It belongs to the people. That's why I always say, and I'm running in the 7th, I hope that I am given the honor of sitting in that seat for the people. It's not my district. It's not my seat. I hate when they use that personal pronoun it's my seat. It seems like to me, in my opinion, that these incumbents, when they move around or they want to go up from the House to the Senate, that somehow they believe that the district they're going on is their district, made for them, and no one else can be a part of the process in running for that office. That somehow they earned or deserve it to the exclusion of all others, when we know, a democratic republic, a republic that has democratic elections, only functions properly when you have a convergence of ideas, but also a statement of ideas between two people, and allow people to make that selection for themselves.
I'm going to put you on the spot.
Yeah.
You tell me, and I agree, you tell me, don't do this.
Don't.
Okay. Without doing that, how do I clear my name, or how do I hold her accountable for lying?
I think this is a first good step. And then what you want are the people that are listening to this to spread this around. If they want the testament, if they've been subjected to this poll, remember, small portion of the district has been subjected to this poll, because what they want is they want to take these numbers to their fundraiser guy, like I said earlier, or to the governor's people and say, look, we're in the lead, or we're going to beat Hermie. But you can defend yourself just like you did. If somebody asks you the question, defend it. What you also have is, this is who I'm not, is not what she says. But also you have the words of Emily herself, or your opponent herself, I'll take her name out.
Yeah.
That will say, she says I'm not a Trumper, that I don't support Trump. I did support Trump. But here's what she said about John Kasich, and here's what she said about Donald Trump. You leave it at that. Go to the next issue. Get back ultimately to the issues that matter to people in Southside Virginia. Good jobs.
That's the whole sad thing about this whole thing, Bill.
Better schools, free school choice for scholarships that follow the child, to give them an educational opportunity, that they make the decisions, not the state government. There's so many good things that we need to attack Democrats on. Transgendering of our children. We could go on and on. We have to take the attack to them, not be so consumed by the attack on each other.
So why is she doing this?
I smell desperation. So you just keep running. Just keep running, brother.
But let me tell you what I did do. I sent a copy of these questions. Next Thursday night, April the 13th, we're supposed to have a candidate forum down in Franklin, Virginia at the Paul D. Camp Workforce Development Center.
What time?
6:30, and I invite people in the listening area to come to the to the venue and listen.
They should
listen to both candidates. But I sent these questions on this push poll to the editor of the Smithfield Times newspaper, and I said, I would like for you, as the host of this candidate forum next week, to either y'all at the paper or contact Emily's campaign directly. I would be willing to give up some of my time to speak, give Emily an extra 5 or 10 minutes to let her prove what she states as fact in these push poll questions. So I hope that either the newspaper and or her team decide to get a hold of that contract that I've got with Louise Lucas and show it to the world next Thursday night. Get a hold of all these lawsuits that I've got with all these small businesses across the Commonwealth of Virginia and bring them to light next Thursday night.
That makes me laugh.
Find the receipt for $22,000 from a strip club in Las Vegas and show it to the world. All of these things, I'm old school, I guess, but I just think, I don't care if it's politics or not, or a campaign or not, Bill, if people are going to spread that about someone and their family, they should have to prove it.
I agree. I'm a lawyer. You ought to. It's not what you say that matters. It's what you can prove that matters in the court of law, and it should be the same in the court of public opinion.
So I'm more than willing to debate.
Throwing the gauntlet down.
I'm more than willing. Hey, look, I didn't want it to be somebody on my campaign team.
Right.
I didn't want it to be some blogger somewhere that was a political guru. I sent it to the editor of the paper because I told this guy with the newspaper, I said, if you're going to cover this race through the primary, June 20th, and cover me or Emily against the Democrat through November, you need to know both candidates, who we are, what we stand for, but they're also, both candidates need to be, when you're dealing with somebody with a newspaper, when that newspaper guy calls me throughout the rest of this campaign towards the primary,
right,
or towards the general election, when somebody from the Smithfield Times or the Suffolk Herald calls Hermie Sadler, they need to be able to know that the information or quote, or when I answer a question, that I'm being truthful to them.
Amen.
So they can write articles and give a fair and honest and open, transparent answer for their readers if they want to cover this race in an impartial fashion.
Yeah.
They need to have that same thought about Emily Brewer. So reading all these questions, how can somebody from the Suffolk Times or the Smithfield paper, if they don't investigate and push Emily or her team or the people, the reporters with the paper, they dig themselves. If they can't have faith and trust that what Emily Brewer is going to tell them to the paper and provide truthful, transparent feedback to cover this race impartially, well, how can they cover it?
Yeah.
So
wow. You're throwing down the gauntlet, brother.
No, I'm not. I'm saying,
no, I think that's a good gauntlet.
If you're going to say it,
yeah, prove it.
Prove it.
Absolutely.
And by the way, the reason I did this too, to be done at this candidate forum, I don't want Emily's consultant to answer the questions. I don't want her campaign managers answering the questions. I want Emily to answer the question.
You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen, on Leaning Right and Turning Left with Sadler in the center. My man, Hermie Sadler, my number two, my best bud. Best bud for a lot of people out there. Great American, great Virginia, great small business owner. Has never sued small businesses to make a profit. Likes Donald Trump, loves Donald Trump, supports Donald Trump. We could go through the list again, but listen to this podcast. Send it to your friends. Let them make decisions for themselves. But the gauntlet is dropped. This race is underway, and I love it when you're fired up.
I look forward to, it looks like Emily's pushing this way, for us to have a conversation about who said what about Trump at the appropriate time.
Man, that's going to be fun. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to end it there, and we're going to come back with a second segment. It's a must-listen-to segment with Hoots.
David Hoots.
Bob Dillner.
Yeah.
And Chris Williams, the king of merch for Dale Earnhardt Sr., now the owner of the Smart Tour. It's a great conversation. Hermie, thanks for
listening. You got my blood pressure up.
I know. I'm sorry, brother, but I love when you get fired up like this. This is how we start, lawsuits against small businesses and entrepreneurs. Kidding.
All we need is a little crown and a mouse.
Hey, man. I mean, listen, and quite frankly, I hope we join at the battlefield of ideas and that you don't have to suffer this. But again, you get really mad when I say this. Welcome to politics.
All I can tell people
really bad,
as we close,
but it's really good for you.
All I can tell people is this. I'm fighting battles related to the nomination process. My opponent and a whole bunch of other people tried to run a play to slant things in her favor in the convention.
Right.
I fought against it.
Well, no, you didn't even do. You just supported the lady who was fighting against
right.
it. You stood up for her.
And now
you weren't even involved in that litigation other than filing basically amicus brief.
Transparency has to be key. Now I've got my opponent throwing these things out and I'm going to fight again.
Good for you.
Because I think the truth matters and transparency matters. And what I want to say, I say all that to say, if people vote for me to represent them in the 17th Senate District, while I'm there, when I see or get presented with something or somebody gives me something that I think is unfair or not in the best interest of the constituents of the 17th Senate District, Hermie's not going to go along to get along and check a box for anybody.
That's right. And that's the way I've known you for as long as I've known you. Ladies and gentlemen, ding, ding, ding. Let's get ready to rumble. Here comes the 17th Senate District primary, up and coming. We'll keep everyone involved in how this is going. But thanks for talking about this push poll and the falsehoods that were contained in there. I'm glad you got to address them. We're going to take a break right now, listen to our sponsors, and when we come back, you're going to listen to Hoots, a legend in NASCAR, who's got good stories about David and Hermie.
One of the best ever.
You've got Bob Dillner, who's got great stories about Hermie, and obviously loves Hermie more than me because he never used my name in terms of our Sadler Stanley racing team. And you got Chris Williams. So stay tuned. Listen to these messages. We'll be right back.
Hi, folks. This is Hermie Sadler. Thanks for listening to our all-new podcast, Leaning Right and Turning Left with Sadler and the Senator. I hope you are enjoying the show as much as Senator Stanley and I enjoy bringing it to you. Whether you're a family traveling together or a truck driver hauling freight up and down the highway, I hope you will take the time to visit one of our Sadler Travel Plaza locations in Virginia and North Carolina. Sadler Travel Plaza locations are licensed dealer locations for Pilot Travel Centers, and we also carry Shell Motiva petroleum products for our four-wheel friends. We pride ourselves on providing one-stop shopping for service, food, and entertainment. Our food options include Five Guys Burgers and Fries, Quiznos, Dairy Queen, Hermie Sadler's Faux Show Bar and Grill, Victory Lane Restaurant, Hunt Brothers Pizza, Dunkin' Donuts, and much, much more. Our locations include Sadler Travel Plaza in South Hill, located off I-85 at exit 12. The Sadler Travel Plaza of Emporia, which is conveniently located on exit 11B off I-95, and Sadler Travel Plaza on Highway 58 in Suffolk. We also have our North Carolina location, Sadler Travel Plaza in Dunn, North Carolina, that's exit 75 off I-95. We appreciate all of our customers, and Bill and I appreciate you listening to Leaning Right and Turning Left with Sadler and the Senator, powered by Pace-O-Matic.
Hey, this is Bill Stanley, Hermie Sadler's sidekick on this podcast. When I'm not in Richmond at the Capitol or doing this podcast, my real job for the past 27 years is as a trial attorney with the Stanley Law Group. Here at the Stanley Law Group, we represent our clients in every courthouse in the Commonwealth. No problem is too small for us to solve. No case is too big for us to win. Whether it's criminal charges, traffic offenses, civil disputes, litigation matters of any sort, we handle it all. we make sure that we treat every client like family because they are to us. Your problem is our problem. Your success is our success because we hate to lose more than we love to win. And believe me, we win a lot. Don't believe me? Go ask Hermie. I'm his favorite lawyer, and he hates lawyers. So give us a call at 540-721-6028 and let us help you. Or visit our website at www.vastanleylawgroup.com. That's www.vastanleylawgroup.com. At the Stanley Law Group, we'll make sure we're the lawyers that you swear by and not at. And we're back. I'm Virginia State Senator Bill Stanley. Without Hermie Sadler, the co-owner of the Sadler-Stanley race team. Some people don't know that yet, but I am the co-owner. But we're here at South Boston today with the Smart Modified Tour guys, and we're going to talk to them. Stop. This is Leaning Right and Turning Left with Sadler and the Senator, just the Senator right now. Go ahead. This is Chris Williams, Senator, owner of the series, Senator, Smart Modified Tour.
You called me last week. We have a new voice, Bob Dillner of
Who?
Smart. Yeah. And you said, I'm the co-owner. And I said, what are you talking about? He says, it's been mentioned 12 times and my name hadn't been mentioned once. And I was like,
it was Hermie Sadler's team
and co-owner
that was running the Bobby Labonte Jonathan Cash car at last week, and he was the co-owner.
I said,
but nobody told anybody in Flow World who the co-owner might be.
I said, he's new. Just give him a second or two.
Where's Eric?
Where's Eric?
Where's Eric? Your former announcer.
I'm new too, so I'm a rookie. I got a yellow stripe on, and you know, I mean, Hermie has been my buddy for a long time, so I had to get him some plugs because he hasn't been on TV too much lately.
Oh, that is a good reason to do it. But let's introduce ourselves, starting at the end there. The man who has a cat in my house named after him, JB.
Are you trying to tell me I'm calling me something there?
I am.
That's you can use the P word if you want.
Hey, I am what I eat. But listen, it's good to be here. We're at South Boston Speedway.
It's a family show.
I'm excited. I'm excited. What? I'm talking about Chinese. They cook cats. They cook cats.
Very
what
cool.
are you talking
Excellent.
about?
No, you made it very clear now. That's right.
Yeah.
Meow.
It's over.
Now, Jeff, describe yourself. What you do here in the Smart Series Tour.
What don't I do?
Now, let's go back
What
and say you know what you don't do? You don't bring helmets and uniforms for the ride-along tonight that I've got to go borrow helmets and uniforms. I give you one job.
The one thing.
job.
All right, listeners, since they're not doing a good job, we've got Jeff Bunton, we've got Chris Williams, and we got the co-brother of Matthew Dillner here. Jeff, tell us, try again, without interference, tell us what you do, bud.
I am Chris's assistant, but also on race day.
You got that right.
Yeah.
You know what the abbreviation for assistant.
Assistant. Anything that bad happens, it was my fault, according to Chris.
Yeah, well, yeah.
I'm not taking the blame for it.
I'm his lawyer and lawyer for the series, and it's my fault, too.
There you go. Yeah, there you go. So, I mean, you're in the same boat. But no, race day, I pretty much coordinate most of everything, the officials, the banners, the process, the logistics. And during the race time is when I actually relax in the flag stand. That's where the best seat in the house is.
Well, and I do want to say, as we sit here and we're at South Boston Speedway getting ready for the Smart Modified Tour to come off at South Boston, my son, you are one of his heroes. And in fact, we have sets of flags. And when we're watching the NASCAR races, he gets out there and does exactly what you do in front of my big screen TV. So he admires you greatly, as many kids do. But how'd you get into to becoming a flagman?
Exactly what you just said. I was a kid in turn 1 at Orange County Speedway watching the flagman. And Dad was like, why aren't you watching the race? I was like, I like what he's doing.
Yeah.
And I was a big Earnhardt fan, and I wanted to be a race car driver, and I knew that wasn't going to happen. It takes a lot of money and dedication there, so I wanted to be the one to give Earnhardt the checkered. So I wanted to be a flagman. And one thing led to another. It happened to be Orange County Speedway is where my launching pad was.
How old were you?
I was 15 when I started.
Wow. 15 in the flag stand?
I was on the safety crew with my dad. He was over safety operations, and we had several officials that had to be on vacation. So the flagman at the time, Joe George, my mentor, had to be over the limited sportsman division. And they asked, well, who's going to flag? And he pointed to me. He's been watching me. And they set me up there, 15 years old, with no experience. And the rest is history.
And did you black flag anybody that night?
I did not. The next week, I did.
I bet that went over well.
That went over like fart in church. Like, you know, who gave that kid charge to black flag? You know,
This is Mike. Yeah. This is going to get ratings.
I'm telling you, this is going to be the biggest podcast we've had, and we've had some big ones.
Losing
Next to you, JB, named after my cat, Chris Williams. Chris, introduce yourself to the audience, please. Say hi.
I guess I'm the bad guy of everybody else, from JB and Bob. Everything goes wrong, I'm the one that takes the brunt of it all. But no, I'm officially the smart director, but technically I'm the owner of the series. So I guess you'd call it. I go out and do the sponsorship. I do all of the contracts. I sit with the track and create all of these opportunities for us to race in beautiful North Carolina, Virginia, and South Carolina. And I deal with the drivers on a one-on-one basis. They chew you out every other day and then call you and apologize 2 days later.
I think I did that once.
You did that last year at Hickory. He was mad at me for 6 months.
It wasn't
for
6
black
months.
flag. Oh yes, it was.
I was speaking of black flag. Speaking of black flag,
Yeah.
it was JB that black flag.
PS on the jump restart, and
It was not BS. It's
it
the
was
rule.
total
It's
BS.
our series. We got over this. Let's not hash this back up.
No, you're one of my very good friends, and of course, anytime you need me in my legal help or my political help, I've been there for you. And you've done a great job with the Smart Series, but this has been a dream for many modified drivers down here in the Southeast to bring back the Smart Tour. It was big for a long time, then it went basically defunct, and you brought it back.
Well, I had a lot of help, and I've said this in interviews and things of that nature. What I'm surrounded with sitting right here, but what I'm surrounded with in there is we have a passion for the modifieds. And so,
And that's clear.
when I pay you nothing, but you show up still anyway to broadcast, to do what you do, to inspect, to race at this level, you have to have a passion for what you're doing, and it shows in everything that everybody does. And to be perfectly honest with you, it's been 3 years. People don't really realize it's been 3 years we've been doing this, and people's like, I went up to Richmond, recently, and they basically
This is a Saturday. Everybody in podcast world can know that. Our listeners can know this is a Saturday right before the South Boston race. We're sitting here on turn 1 in one of the tower suites. We're having this conversation, so it's okay. Even though the guy to your right wants to direct traffic and make it more evergreen.
Exactly.
Our people understand what's going on here, but
So-
you were up in Richmond with us last night. It got rained out. The Wheeling Modified. We had 2 of our cars in the Sadler Stanley race team. They were running Bobby Labonte and Ryan Newman. We'll see if Ryan Newman runs tonight. If his kid's race gets canceled, then he was coming back to running that race.
Yeah.
We got Jonathan Cash here tonight with Bobby Labonte. He's going to be driving down 360 at a moderate rate of speed with some of our deputy sheriffs watching out for him.
And ain't that a good thing?
Yeah, that's right. And so, when you started the Smart Modified, and you got on Flow Racing, you did an amazing thing. You brought this announcer, Eric Brennan, who was just amazing. This guy knew how to talk about the sponsors, knew all the racers, knew what the qualifying times were actually, knew when they got in, where they posted, wasn't looking down at his race monitor all the time, and knew who the owners were, and occasionally mentioned those owners' names. But Eric Brenner is not here this year, is he?
No, he, we knew that Eric was silky smooth, and we knew the opportunity was going to come to him pretty quick. Of course, the Cars Tour kind of jumped out after him, and he took that position, and we applaud Eric for moving laterally.
You couldn't throw some bucks his way.
Well, you got to have bucks to throw.
I mean, you could have called
Junior got a little bit more.
I mean,
Junior
he
got
says my name.
Junior got a little bit more bucks than I got. Is what I'm trying to tell you.
That's true.
But no, we like what's going on over there with the Cars Tour, and Eric's doing extremely well. So I took the road to say, who do I want? And we had some people in mind, and we communicated.
And they didn't call back.
This is awesome.
This reminds me of when I broke into the wrestling business. Jeff Jarrett can probably tell you.
So Bob paid me a lot of money, and got I've never been paid for them to work for me. That's what I've never seen that before.
It's a reverse little Charlie Wingo thing.
I'm just So anyway, I knew Bob's background, and I knew that he had been, broadcasting for quite some time.
Fresh
Speed
out of
51,
prison. Right.
Prison. He still got the
ankle monitor.
ankle monitor. And
let me give you my card there, Bob. Yeah, you'll know my name.
This is
I should have given you the card last week.
Oh, God.
So to your right is our new announcer in the
Yes.
Smart Series. Now,
Yes.
now listen, I've identified him as the Charles Kuralt of short track racing. I've watched Short Track Life videos on YouTube. They're compelling. He's amazing. He's silky smooth when he's not announcing a race, when he's talking about short track racing, the importance of short track racing. He's got the name of racing in his last name, Dillner. He's got the name of most people who are forbidden to enter into theaters to watch children's movies, Bob.
You know, when you call
Bob Dillner, everybody.
Hey, before Bob speaks, you know, you used the word short in life with me when he forgot your name last week.
That's actually true. That's actually
So,
true.
you know, now that y'all have formally met, Bob, tell him why you're here.
How you doing, Bob?
I love modifieds. And I like how he introduced me, too. He says, we got Matt Dillner's brother here. So he got me back because I didn't say his name last year.
No, 23 times last week he was the co-owner. He told
took time to
me
count.
52 times over the weekend.
It's 24. It's 24. Never named. And you know, really, my 11-year-old loves to hear his name, his last name mentioned.
Sure.
And you just
Sadler, Stanley, Racing. Yeah.
Say it again. Get it right.
Could you give him a shirt so he can just look down and read it upside down?
What's your size? We got this in the
There you
camper.
go.
We're gonna- at the RV. I'll
double
get
X,
some.
you know.
I think I got one of those for you, buddy. Are you sure it's double X? Might be a 3X.
Oh, wow. No, I'm not Matt. Anyway.
And we love Matt Dillner. Your
do.
brother is an amazing, amazing person.
Yes, and we grew up as modified people up north and went to modified races, 3-4 times a week and had a lot of fun. And, I've been away from modifieds for a while, but kept a close eye on them. Went to NASCAR route for a while and covered the Cup Series for 17 years and then went on the dirt side for
So
the
who'd
last
you cover
10.
Cup with?
Well, I was with TNN to start off with.
Okay.
Then I went over to Speed, and that's where Hermie and I, buddies. That's kind of why I need to mention his name a couple
Hermie
times.
Sadler, Hermie Sadler, Hermie Sadler.
And then
Got it.
obviously it turned into Fox and Fox Sports 1, and we did truck races together and cup races and so forth. So spent that time over there, and then came on the short track side. And I owned Speed 51. Started that back in 2001 and sold that to the RTA. And they've changed it a little bit and stayed with them for a while. They have a great deal there, but I wanted to keep with my short track roots. So I went with Mav TV and did, almost 10 years with the Lucas Oil late model dirt series, off-road racing out west, the Arca Menard series for Mav TV as their host. So I've been in the game for a long time. I remember you were talking about being 15. I was 15 when Area Auto Racing News out of Trenton, New Jersey called me and said, hey, my parents had punished me because I was awful in school. And all I could do was stay in my room and read or write. I couldn't watch TV. I couldn't go out and ride my bike.
You're not good at math
Nothing.
when it comes to qualifying either, by the way.
Yeah,
bud.
well, race monitor's got to update a little bit quicker. But
Hold on, I gotta say, this is funny. So the lady there at Caraway is kind of our official score.
This is last week's race.
Yeah, but the problem was they can't be in the same booth as us.
Right.
So they have to be around the corner. So it was so great. I'm gonna have to.
Dillner's out there announcing,
Well, he's
he
waiting.
didn't make up anything better, and the guy just got the pole. And, it looks like as fast as lap was
twice
his first
he
lap.
said, well, it looks like the same time, and it was 2/10 quicker. And she's finally, what the F is he doing? But he was looking at the monitor instead of her.
So everybody on this side of the booth, not the, we're the, the low people.
Yeah.
We're on this side of the booth. My brother and I are sitting together and we're like, okay, update. And it's not updating.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, boom, it updated. So, hey, that's natural. You roll with the flow and you go with it.
Well,
so,
when you're stuck with electronics, that's what you.
absolutely.
And that's why artificial intelligence is going to ruin us all, right?
That's right.
Well,
I
we're
wanted Morse
we're
code
also
or something.
stuck on Wi-Fi availability.
Yeah, there
and
was
some other-
nothing.
So
No,
Interesting conversation we had this morning.
I was working
Yes.
off of, because the track didn't have the Wi-Fi for us. So I was working off of actually a hotspot from some lady's phone that was, like 30 feet away. She was gracious enough to give me that. So it took a little while for it to update.
well, and you caught up eventually. I mean, everything was
Eventually.
fine. And the great thing about Race Monitor is it's usually about 5 minutes ahead of the flow broadcast. So we're like, he's
45
totally
seconds.
wrong, and he hadn't wrong, and then all of a sudden you corrected. But it was a lot of fun listening to you, and welcome aboard to the Smart Series. You've got an incredible voice, and when I first heard you, I told Chris Williams, I said, that man's made for wrestling. He needs to announce a wrestling match. But, what is it going to take for you in terms of getting better? actually paying attention. What are you going to do to make sure that it's a smooth go on Flow, to say?
Well,
what do you think?
We're working with Flow and making sure that they have the cameras on the correct battles.
That's exactly.
They did a great job at Caraway, much improved over Florence.
Well, I'll tell you what you did. You admonished them on the air to get the split screen, because a lot of the great racing here in the Smart Series is not just up front, where you might have some separation between car 1 and 2.
Yeah.
And P1 and P2, but in the mid-pack, and you made them do it, and they went to a split screen, and then they went away from it. But you were directing traffic. I really appreciate that, because that's where some of the fun racing at Caraway was last week.
Like I said, I'm learning you, you're learning me, and I've been around racing.
That's right.
Listen, Mike. Anyway, listen, I've been a racing guy all my life, so this is what I love. Chris talks about passion, and I've been going to racetracks since I've been in diapers. My dad was a crazy figure 8 racer. That's probably why I am the way I am, because he got hit in the X one too many times. So
you came from a racing family, you and Matt Dillner.
Yep,
of course,
absolutely.
We all know Matthew when he was on the junior download.
Yep.
The Dale Junior Download was a great figure, and then went off to work with Flo, and has really been bringing short track racing, dirt racing, bringing up that profile. He's done a great job. I mean, you must be kind of jealous about his success compared to your own at this point, right?
No, not really. I'm happy for him, but people used to ask him that too, because obviously I came on board first and was in the NASCAR big leagues for 17 years, and everybody was like, "Oh, you're Bob's brother." And now lately, being that I went to the dirt scene, I'm coming back to pavement, and oh, you're Matt's brother. So
but you're much better looking. I'll give you that. You got Mama's jeans in there somewhere.
He's got the jolliness.
You told me to give him the works today, so I'm giving him the business.
Holy crap!
I didn't know it was going to be that deep.
So Bob, you come from a racing family.
Yeah.
Your dad was racing figure 8s. Did you get into racing? I know Matt did some racing. Did you do some racing?
Yeah, I actually did a lot more than Matt. He had trouble fitting in those Legends cars, and he couldn't,
Even at a young age. Huh?
he couldn't.
He looked 30 when he was in 5th grade.
Yeah, he couldn't fit.
He was buying beer for the
It was
graders.
Sasquatch.
He tried to fit in a micro sprint one time when we were up at Dundee, New York, and
That's just a bad
up there
idea.
covering. And he couldn't fit in that.
They had to get the jaws of life to get him out.
He tipped the micro. Got it up on 2 wheels, I think. But no, we've been around it. But our family didn't have money, kind of like JB was saying. So I've run.
I thought you was going to say kind of like JB didn't have it. It's the truth. I thought that's where he was going.
It's the truth. Maybe you need a little money. I guess.
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
But we wanted to, but I've been on cruise. I used to race about 10 races a year up until about 4 or 5 years ago. I've had a bunch of concussions because of playing ball and so forth.
That's evident. We're getting to the core issue. We've double diagnosed this boy, right?
So my wife has said no more racing. Who knows? I said I'm going to be.
Occasionally you go, "Are you my wife?"
Yeah, I'm going to be the oldest rookie of the year sometime, maybe in the Smart Modified series, so I can call Chris and complain every single week like a lot of the competitors do. But no, I love
the phone today.
Yeah.
It's raining. Well, no crap.
It was blowing up when you and I were touring the track.
It's like
it was
20
blowing
times.
up.
I'm like, yeah, everything's still on. Everything's good. We even had somebody call and said, oh, y'all canceled. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
No, we're not canceled. I mean, but that's the way it is. Everybody gets.
I was talking to sheriffs today to try to get them to make sure we get an escort of some of our haulers and some of our drivers down here, and they're like, well, we're worried about the civil liability. If they're going high speed and somebody wrecks,
And what did you say?
And I said, I don't care.
That's not what you said.
No, I said I'd represent them.
Yes, you did.
As their lawyer. And but even they were saying, we heard it was canceled. And then I got a call. I heard it's 8:45. I mean, it's amazing the rumors that go around
It's
here
a
with short track
bad
racing.
game of telephone in this business.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
Say one thing, by the time it comes
One
back around,
person starts
total
something,
difference.
and by the time it gets to us here, it's nothing but crap.
Yeah, but we're looking right now at sunshine at South Boston Speedway, which was supposed to come out at about 12:30. It's now an hour and a half late. I've been told in the western part of the Commonwealth of Virginia, we've got nothing but sunshine right now, and we've got Bob Dillner here, who has. Did you practice like everybody's number? You know everybody dead to rights. You know how to pronounce
No, I
their
didn't
name?
practice. I do my homework before coming to the racetrack and
Bobby
do my sheets and stuff.
Leviante is in the lead.
Holy moly.
Hang on. He said he'd done his homework, but 3 minutes ago he said his parents, he didn't learn well in school, right?
And too many concussions. You did
Double
a real
diagnosis.
good thing here, Chris
Wow,
Williams.
this is brutal.
I guess this is all on me, right? Actually,
Here, it all goes back to you, Chris.
Yeah.
So-
So he might actually have to pay me this time for taking this abuse.
So you also got this thing on the internet and on social media, Short Track Life.
Yeah.
You do some vignettes. You do some recordings. After you failed to mention my name like every time, I went back and I looked through all your videos, and they're amazing.
Yeah.
And so, where can people tell us about Short Track Life, and tell us where everybody can go see that, because it is such an informational output for those that love short track racing and the history of short track racing. And your delivery is really beyond the pale. It's really amazing. So
Well, thank you.
I'm actually hooked on it, and I hate to admit it to you. I hate to admit to that.
You'll
Tim.
love me after tonight, okay?
Tim Dillner, I watch all your stuff.
Listen, like I said, I wrote for Area Auto Racing News, went to Speedway Scene, then went the TV route, was in TV for a long time, still doing some TV stuff, but, creating Speed 51, I remember when TNN got out of racing, and I had nothing to do, so I created Speed 51, and that became the largest pavement short track site in the country, and really enjoyed doing that, and my brother helped me, with some graphics early on, and then we brought him in, and he worked with me on Speed 51, and we had a great staff, and we had 10 full-time people when we sold it, and I missed it. So when MAV TV changed their direction last year and got rid of their production of television, I was in Indy working and running that network with them and a couple other people, and I said, I'm moving back to North Carolina. So that's where my family was. I got 2 grandkids now, wanted to be closer to them. Grandkids, believe it or not. So honestly, it's one of those deals where I wanted to come back, and I've been doing dirt racing for a decade and came back to my roots, which is pavement racing, super late models, modified, you name it. So I wanted to do something different than Speed 51, and so that's why we created Short Track Life, and we want some free content for people. The subscription-based platforms are awesome, and they are the bread and butter for people in terms of watching live racing, but at the same time, people deserve some free content out there, and that's what we're doing. We got some things planned where we're going to go into shops, we're going to go find out who, is a bulldozer driver, for a living, all sorts of stuff. Maybe come up and talk to you, since you're the senator. So,
that's nice of you to know that.
You like that?
I appreciate that.
I'm smooth as well. So
you got to give some money. There you go. Yeah.
Now you're my.
there you go.
Thank you, Chris. Chris has handed our boy Frank at least a couple $100. But and everybody, you should go to Short Track Life, and really, it is so important. I think all 3 of you would agree, not only to preserve what we have, but to also make it grow. I mean, this is the grassroots of racing. This is where it started. We're sitting in the historic South Boston Speedway. You're sitting in the flag stand tonight in one of the most historic racetracks in Virginia, but also in America. I mean, how does that make you feel there, JB?
Absolutely. When we first brought him here, it was surreal. We had a heck of a field like we do here tonight, and it was
30 cars,
star-studded.
isn't it?
Yeah, and
if I can get them down 360 with some deputy
Tell me about it. But to drop the green and unleash that type of power here in front of a crowd that we have here every time we come here, best fans around. It's surreal. You get goosebumps. I remember coming here when the Busch Series used to come here, the Truck Series used to come here. The chills I would get from that when I was growing up, and the Smart Tour. Powered by Pace-O-Matic with the Smart Stars, bring the same.
See what he just did right there? He mentioned the sponsor. That's awesome. Thank you, JB.
It brings in the same nostalgia, I think.
Well, and think about this. Chris told me that when he started back in the Smart Tour, one of the first things he did was contact you and get you on board. And you were really one of the personalities of the Smart Tour. The drivers respect you. The fans love to watch you. My son loves to watch you, as I told you earlier. It's just an amazing thing how personalities actually do come out through the Smart Series between you, Chris, and Mark over here, Mark Dillner. I mean, what do you see? Tell me, give the listener a little bit about how this all kind of organically restarted itself in the Smart Series, a series that's one of the oldest on the East Coast for open wheel modifieds. You guys get together. You and Chris talk to us about how that all came about and the inner workings of Smart as it was reborn.
Well, JB brought a handful of cash and said nobody would hire him, and he needed a job, which is not true.
And some wrestling touch.
I was peacefully in a hammock when my phone rang. I had been away from modified racing for a few years. I worked with NASCAR Wheeling Southern Modified Series when it was going on. It actually took over the Smart Tour back in 2004. I had enough. I walked away, but the big man upstairs has a plan for you, and I thought I had it planned out that I was done, and I wasn't. Got a phone call. what a lot of people told Chris about, again, what drives us doing what we do is the passion. He heard a lot of passion that I brought to the table, and the rest is history. Basically, we went to Florence, that first expedition race that we had. It was 9 points. It was just testing the waters, and it was a knock out of the park. Everybody was happy to be back and everything. It was coming off of the pandemic. I don't care what anybody says, pandemic or not, this thing here was going to launch, because Chris, what he brings is a awesome platform that these guys down here, the Smart Stars, deserved over the years, and he's brought it, and he's let me do a lot of that I have learned over the past years, being in the business, also in the wrestling business that I was involved in. I brought the nostalgia that brings that, because let me tell you something, modified drivers is the best personalities in racing, period.
I gotta agree with you.
Period. I'll go up against any division out there in this country. These guys are personalities. You've got.
What did you just say? They're crazy?
They're crazy. They're all above. They're all above.
I think you got to be to go that fast, don't you?
I mean, look, but they, look, I say this, but they only know one speed, and that's flat out.
Yeah.
And, a lot of people have different mentalities in a race car, and I'm not saying it's in a late model or a super late model, but when you see the cars that much go faster, it doesn't matter if it's World Outlaw on dirt or whatever, those guys that are on that edge, that has that true mentality of, I'm going to do whatever it takes to win. And I'm not saying at all costs, but most of the time they gravitate towards horsepower.
Well, and not only that, though, I mean, you have in a very short time rebuilt the Smart Series. It just seemed like it was dormant but not gone.
Yeah.
And the personalities that were there before have come back.
Yeah.
And what I see in the crowds are, you get the biggest crowds. We've looked over these numbers, you and I both have, especially with this track and other tracks. You're the biggest draw already in these short tracks in these rural areas.
And we give back to the fans. We give back to them, whether it be on track or off track. You'll see me. I get hyped up. Again, I take the wrestling nostalgia to this level here. And during our Bell helmet stage break, you'll see me throwing shirts to the fans, getting them hyped up before we take the green. We have a thing that we do that hypes up the crowd.
Yep.
We give back and salute the fans. Our guys, our Smart Stars, before they take the green, before they get one to go, they're waving to the fans.
It's one of the most amazing things, too, and the loyalty's there as well.
I think that's what's missing, or has been missing, from the pavement side for a long time. And I helped with the Snowball Derby down in Pensacola, Florida for years, and build that event back up through Speed 51. Tim Bryant and we worked on that event for almost 20 years together.
Wow.
And it's where it's at now. Dirt has charisma. These modified racers have charisma. They are braver than any other racer out there on the pavement side. But what is missing a little bit, that Chris and JB, have been working on, that I wanted to be part of and bring a little bit of what I know from the dirt world and what I've done with events like the All-American 400 and the Snowball Derby, is bring even more of that charisma, more of that exposure, more of that hype for these drivers, these teams, the owners like you and Hermie.
Oh, thank you.
That's okay. Tell Hermie I said hello, by the way.
Hey, make it Stanley Sadler racing when you announce it tonight. Hermie loves that.
So, I think that the biggest thing that we need to do, these guys, they go out there and do their job. We, as a series, now need to do our job to help promote them more.
Yeah.
Bring their exposures, more opportunities, whether it's through flow, short track life, more, series content. Content is king these days.
You're right.
And that's what we need to build up, because that's the only way. If you go to a dirt race, and I've covered the World 100, the Dirt Track World Championship down at East Bay every year, it's packed for 6 straight nights at East Bay. Packed.
Wow.
25-lap race. And guess what? It's paying 7, 10, 20, 30 grand to win. These guys want that right now. And it's going to take some time to get there, but I truly do believe what Chris, JB are doing over here and with whom they have involved. I think that this can be elevated, because I love late model racing, but modified's just something special about the cars that live by the grace of God and 600 horsepower.
Modified, I'll say it is badass. The most badass asphalt oval car there is.
Yeah. And now, I was a race fan since I was a little kid. And then Chris and I got together because, as a legislator, we started what's now called the Stock Car Historic Trail in Virginia. First of its kind. We've got the Crooked Road, which celebrates bluegrass. And so I wanted to do this to kind of bind together all of our short tracks, preserve them the best that they could, because a lot of times, like South Boston and Franklin County, the rural areas and their economies and their small businesses depend on them. Plus, it felt like to me we were losing a little bit of, dance with the one that brung you. That we had corporatized NASCAR so much that we had forgotten really where it came from, its roots. And these short tracks are the roots. And that's where Hermie and I got involved. I talked to Chris one night. We talked all night. And I said, man, I'm sold. I'll come out and watch one of these races, just from what he said. And I was hooked. And my family was hooked.
I remember that.
And that was in Radford.
Yep.
We went to the Motor Mile, got an RV out there. My kids were just hooked. It was a great weekend. I got Hermie's fat ass to get into one of these modifieds. He was like, can you get a car with a bigger than a 16-inch window or a 13-inch window?
We actually talked about that.
Yeah. And he said, they stopped the race, the kitty litter race, that's what it was called.
Oh, yeah.
They stopped the race. Every other race car driver got out. Hermie never got out. We get to the end of the race. I said, Hermie, why didn't you get out? He said, because I didn't think I'd get back in. I didn't think I'd fit back in that thing. But he was hooked. He came out with a twinkle in his eye. He hadn't raced in a long time. And he and I have been friends for a long time, and we'd been talking about how do we get our message, with skill games, with Pace-O-Matic, but how do we really make a difference in these rural areas? And we found it right here in short track racing. You just mentioned earlier, Bob, hey, I called you by your name.
Finally.
That you guys know, and I think you do have the blueprint on how to make this revitalization permanent and stick. Yeah. What would the two of you guys think about when you think about what is that roadmap to get to that point of success where we're filling the stands no matter what it is, where it is, when it is, in these short tracks in these rural areas?
I think it's making a turn right now as far as the attention going from, let's call it big league Sundays racing, okay, without name dropping, Cup. It's coming back around to roots. And the attention, the nostalgia is coming back from this. And I think we stay the course and add a little bit of what you're saying in that vein. It's going to make the turn. I remember back when growing up in the 80s and the 90s, Orange County Speedway, South Boston used to go back and forth. The same group of fans, which sold out the place, used to go back and forth. You'll see a Bowman Gray type fan base at all your short tracks if we just stay the course.
I was part of the American Speed Association before it went away. Mm-hmm. Okay. And I did TV for them for, I think, 4 years. And when we came to town with ASA, no matter where it was, it could be in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, it could be in Memphis, it could be anywhere. It was like the circus is coming to town. And what I saw here coming into the show, I love the fact that, Pace-O-Matic and, had some stuff going on, and Bobby Labonte was doing some appearances and so forth. And you had things cooking in this area. That's what we need to do every single venue we go into.
Absolutely.
I mean, there is, you can write it down. There is a plan to make things work. And as long as you follow that plan that has worked historically in racing, I think we can bring that hype back. I remember being in New York. Okay. I grew up in Long Island. All right. Crazy, tough-nosed racing there. But every year we came down to Rougemont. Okay, and I would see Charlie Jerzombeck win at Rougemont, at Orange County. And it was just bad to the bone to see that Wilsburg number 5 there. Richie Evans and Fred Harback and Georgie Brunholzel, Jr., not the third. And we would come down from New York and go to those races because of the vibe that the southern area had.
Yeah.
Then, even through, what Smart did and then the NASCAR Whelen Southern Modified Tour, I was covering it with Speed 51. And then it kind of lost a little bit through the transitions of the several different iterations, SMRS and so forth, the ASA side of things. But now, Chris, JB, they're bringing it back to the roots and connecting to the roots. There's a reason why NASCAR calls it NASCAR Roots now, okay? Because they know they got way too big for their britches.
Yeah.
And now that roots is a strong, powerful word, and that's what we need to hook on to. And that's why celebrating the 200th race today at South Boston for the Smart Modified Tour is so important.
That's amazing, too. 200th race run here at historic South Boston Speedway.
Yeah.
And, you just hit the nail on the head, I think, too. Southern Modified racing is different than Northern Modified racing.
Absolutely.
You guys talk about that a little bit. What's the differences? I mean, the personalities are clear. I mean, every guy that I've met from the North Modifieds, little bland.
Down here
guys
in the
down
South,
here, you got Burt Myers, Jason Miles.
down here here in the South.
Hold on. Wait a second here.
Why don't you just adopt
We're a little rough
southern
around the
type
edges.
of- You live in the mountains of North Carolina, for
I
God's
do
sakes.
now, yes.
We're trying to help you so you don't get shot.
We know
when they
how
find
to
out
have
you're
a
from New
good
York.
time is what it is. We know how to have a good time.
That's a good
Us
start.
southern rednecks know how to have a good time. We crack open a beer and then we go out here and race.
That's right.
The beer comes after the racing. Let me,
True.
But
Do you
anyway,
want to know the biggest difference?
what's the difference?
They're way too serious up there, number one.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
And there are so many more fights up there than there are down here.
Wait a minute.
Okay?
Wait,
I've seen Bowman Gray.
Yeah, hang on now.
But they do a lot of that on the racetrack, honestly.
Yeah.
But I mean, listen, I was at Riverhead Raceway and grew up on Long Island.
Yeah.
And when there's one crew would say, I'm going to, kill you. My buddy said, God, they're a little out of hand. I'm like, no, he means it.
I would run.
Exactly. But I think that each has its own characteristic. I believe, even though there is a rivalry between a lot of these drivers, I think they're more charismatic. They're more fun-loving.
You
down
hit
here.
the nail on the head, Bob.
Yes.
Rivalries.
Yes.
Rivalries. That's something that we miss up in the big leagues. And
Oh, yeah.
and look, I mean, you had Earnhardt and Gordon. Really wasn't much of a rivalry, more a rivalry between the fan base.
Wonder Boy. Sure.
But they made money off of that.
Oh, yeah.
These guys down here can
Chris
learn from
Williams
that.
made money off that.
Yes,
He was
Chris
the
Williams.
worst. And for those that listen to the Leaning Right and Turning Left with Sadler and Senator podcast, we had probably one of our biggest podcasts was putting Chris on, talking about being the merchandise king for Earnhardt Sr. Amazing stories that he had there, and I don't think he's told them all because he wants to write a book and make a lot of money, so he doesn't have to work ever
it's
again.
coming.
But you know. That's exactly right. I mean, corporatization of, I think, NASCAR has occurred. A lot more of flash and no grit.
It's a lot of generic drivers. It's a lot of generic personalities. You get these guys out here. I'm not telling Burt Myers to take a chair to Tim Brown's head out here on the Smart Tour. I'm not saying that.
Why not?
Well, if you're going to do it on the front stretch in front of the fence.
We'll give you an extra $100. I'm not saying that. I'm saying be real, be raw, be passionate. We're going to show it.
Yeah.
I'm not telling you to go take the man out, but I want you to race him hard. And if he races you dirty or if he races you too hard, show it.
Yeah.
But there's a reason why NASCAR got like that. And I don't want to go too far off the modifieds, but if you think about it, and I was in NASCAR from 1997 through 2014. All right. And NASCAR was climbing. Okay, when I got into it, they were climbing. And they were
Almost
getting
peaking,
there.
yeah.
And everybody was like, even I was like, I come from a fifth of a mile oval, Islip Speedway and Riverhead Raceway, a quarter mile oval. And we're, down south, everybody says rednecks. Well, we were northern rednecks, okay, because we went to the racetrack every week. And people used to say to me when they would go to ball games, why are you going to a race? Because it's cool, okay? Then we get to NASCAR and we're all dressed in khakis and we have, collared shirts and we got to talk a certain way. Now these drivers have to represent their sponsors and they have to talk a certain way. So honestly, everybody's to blame for it. NASCAR, the drivers, the teams, you name it. Everybody became too polished. And because of that, I think it lost a little of its luster. And what the Smart Modified Tour has here is the fact that, listen, they can talk the talk and walk the walk, but they're not polished, politically correct like the folks in NASCAR. Yeah. And hey, if that works for them, and we've seen it kind of, decline a little bit lately, that's fine. Over here, these guys are real, they're raw, they're just like you and me and everybody else in that grandstand. But yet they can go out and wheel a 600 horsepower modified and do something that other people can't.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes this special. That's the passion that drives the Smart Modified Tour powered by Pace-O-Matic.
These guys here are busting their knuckles at the local shops during the week, making money to feed their families, but also put in their racing program, and also putting on a show on the weekends. They're the weekend warriors.
Yeah.
These taxi cab late model guys that get daddy to pay for everything. God bless you if you were born in that. Good for you. My smart stars can whoop your tail. I'll put you up against
literally
any day.
Literally
any day.
Well, and because I always say when it comes to college sports and pro sports, and maybe to a lesser degree now, college kids were playing it for the love of the game.
Yeah.
They were like high school students. Most of them will not go into the pros. Pros were trying to protect themselves, and I think you got some of the same thing here. These are Joe Bag of Donuts guys that are doing everything to scrape money together. just to come out here and race, and maybe they get a check, but the check doesn't cover what it costs to come out here, but they're doing it because they love it.
Yeah.
And you can feel it. You can feel it on the track. You can feel it when you talk to them. And the way that the Smart Series also embraces the fan, allows that fan, through the pit parties and the interactions, for them to feel that passion as well.
Yeah.
And this is family here.
Yeah.
And I felt it because, like I told you, I went away for a while from modified racing, and this is what I grew up with. Every single Saturday night, sometimes Fridays, Sundays, and Wednesdays as well. Thompson, Riverside Park, Stafford, Oxford, you name it. I was going to racetracks, even outside of my home tracks. But I walked into Florence Motor Speedway when I had been out of modified racing for a decade. And I know a lot of these guys. And I watched Burt Myers when he first started when I moved down south in 97. Heck, he was in the race here at South Boston in 2001 with the Smart Modified Tour. But what I like is everybody went, Bobby, and a lot of people call me Bobby because that's what I was known as back then. Bobby, you're back with the Modifieds. And I felt like I was home again. And it was just awesome to hear that out of these competitors, and nice to have the conversations with them. I was talking to Daniel Yates and, Buzzy, the whole Buzzy family.
Yeah, Buzzy's
here.
back. Tom Buzzy's back.
It's awesome. So that's what you
And that's
love.
why we taped late, by the way, because Chris dropped me off. We toured the track today. We're looking at some business opportunities. And he stops at Tom Buzzy's trailer, and I said, well, we're going to tape at 4, and then we got it. I said, might as well make it 12:30 because I got to sit here and talk to Buzzy. But I love that guy, and that's, again, even the personalities with the owners, even the personalities with the fans, even with the personalities with the drivers, and even their pit guys. I mean, and it is like family.
Yeah.
And so you got all this personality, you got the family feel, and now we're filling the stands again. That's a great thing. Where do we go from here, Bobby?
See,
Oh,
my
you're
friend
part of the family now.
Yes, that's
You're
right.
part of family.
I think it's a crawl, walk, run, and I think we're about to go from crawling to walking, and then eventually we're going to run. And I use that analogy a lot in anything I do, from the Snowball Derby back in the day. Hey, Tim Bryant, we got to build up this midway. We got to get stuff happen, and I think that's what we need to do here. We need to do merch. Okay,
Absolutely.
These stars, these fans need to have the ability to buy these guys T-shirts and apparel and so forth. We need a merch trailer.
Well, you see a bunch of them wearing the T-shirts that they might have bought years ago.
Yes.
They're still coming here with the modified T-shirts.
During these Pace-O-Matic pit parties, they're coming down there and getting them and purchasing them, meeting their smart stars, and it's coming. It's coming.
And I think, and Chris and I, have to talk about this. I think we need to take a few of these shows and put them on TV, not live. Post-race. Guess what? You watch it live here on Flow or in the grandstands, and on Thursday on MAV TV, you're going to be able to see it. And I think that's the next
Great
step.
idea.
And we can. I have a plan.
If you can get a microphone to work.
Yeah, that's right.
Like
Or the
Caraway
scoring.
last week, it was
that
horrible.
too.
Yeah, don't
oh
get
my
me
gosh.
started.
Oh
I
my
felt
God.
like I was, on one leg at one point just to get
I
the
thought he was
microphone
trying to get
work.
away from a fly. He's going up and down with the mic, and I'm like, what's he doing?
I love the fact that the drivers just took the mic and they were trying to find
They
the
knew.
signal.
They're used to it,
But I think those two things we need, T-shirt cannons. We need all sorts of
That's
stuff.
happening today.
When you go to Monster Jam, and I did 1 year of Monster Jam in 2015, and I learned so much by Feld Entertainment and what they did there. That is
Barnum and Bailey's up.
Yes, is connecting, basically the father and the son and the family, bringing them to the racetrack with mom and having a great time. And we got to stop worrying about sometimes, because we're such racing people, worrying about, is this going to be right for the drivers? We have to make sure the teams are taken care of, but we really need to make sure that those fans are taken care of and that they're entertained, because all these guys in the pits, they want to race. But these people in the grandstands want to be entertained.
And
We need that.
these short tracks aren't making money, and they're not packing the stands.
Without the
then you're
fans,
not
you
gonna
got
have the
nothing.
short track race.
Yep.
Without the fans, you got nothing.
And so, and when you guys think about this, of course, the Smart Series as well, how do we get that younger fan here? I mean, they're looking at their phones, they're on their iPads, they're on social media. My 11-year-old, we started, of course, following the Smart Tour when he was 9. He's totally hooked. In fact, he won't race anything else on his iRacing rig except modified.
That same here.
And he runs the
Same here.
South Boston track like he paved it himself. But how do we go and get that younger fan? Because their attention span is not what ours were. I was a gearhead. I handed Dad the wrench.
Well, you
He
got too
told me
many
what the engines
distractions
were.
now. You got the phones and the iPads now. So, I mean, it's the little things that Bob just hit the nail on the head is the souvenir trucks, the extracurricular stuff that happens outside of the racetrack, whether it be a t-shirt cannon, whether it be we'll set up something that has a row of iRacing rigs or something. Don't put us to the test because we'll figure it out.
And something else, and listen, I started this YouTube channel, Short Track Life, and I am a long form guy, TV shows, race broadcasts for years. But then I'm like, okay, I got to get into this shorts stuff. And I think that's something, because I will tell you, and I've been editing these shorts that go on our YouTube channel, and they get more views, and they're like 15, 30 seconds a piece. They get more views than our long form stuff where we really go in depth about the Smart Modified Tour. And you know what? The demographic for those is younger.
Really?
Yes. So that's the key, I think, is understanding the full gamut. I'm talking to my son. My son, Luke, comes with me.
Sometimes you're a filmmaker. He films you as you drive and asks you questions and gives his opinion when you ask it.
That's right.
It's wonderful to see, because that's the father-son thing that I think is so great about what you do.
My other son is one of the camera operators for Flow. So he's camera 2. So we brought him on to be camera 2 because he's grown up with Dad and Uncle Matt, and he knows camera 2 is your battle camera. Camera 1 is on the leader. So Blaze is up there picking the battles. Okay.
You named a kid Blaze?
I did. After awesome. Blaze Alexander, who passed away years ago. Blaze was a great friend of mine.
God rest his soul.
And when I went to his funeral, his dad said that the special thing about Blaze was that he always smiled. And I went home and I told my wife we're naming our son Blaze.
Wow.
So
that's a great story.
Yes. And that's, I like that. She was like, what?
Bob, I'm liking you more and more.
You're part of the family.
This is therapeutic,
Bobby?
Yeah, Bobby. Come on over to the camera and get some
just as long as he doesn't
barbecue.
Say, damn it, Bobby. Yeah, we're good.
Yeah, or Robert. That's when I always knew I was in trouble. Robert Douglas Dillner Jr.
How do you think I felt when they said Jeffrey?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I was William Martin Stanley Jr. So
really,
I got it a lot.
There you go.
So we got the season, of course, underway. Yeah. Mother Nature has not been too kind.
Oh my gosh, no.
We used up our luck the first 2 years. Yeah, it was perfect.
I think Chris Williams pissed off Mother Nature somehow, and we've got to undo that bad juju. But what do you see in terms of, we're seeing 30 cars here at South Boston. We're seeing increasing car counts from last year. Everything's getting bigger. What are you seeing in this season as we look forward from this moment here in April all the way to October when we finish? What does the fan have in store?
I think we're going to see those rivalries really come about this year. And I think that's what we need to promote as a series because, Brandon Ward's got off to a pretty good start, 2 top 5 runs.
Great driver.
Absolutely. And remember, he recorded the win in the finale last year.
That's right.
So technically 2 wins in the last 3 races. Well, that's going to piss off Burt Myers. Mm-hmm. That's going to piss off, Tim Brown. Maybe, Burt Myers and Tim Brown will re-engage their rivalry. Mm-hmm. But that's what we need to do. We need to make sure that when the people come in the grandstands, they pick a side. Because if they pick a side, they're going to be passionate about it. And if they're passionate about
just like NASCAR of old.
That's right. Exactly. I mean, think about it. Cale Yarbrough and Donnie Allison and Bobby Allison and then,
the fight.
Yeah, Wonder Boy, with Jeff Gordon and Dale Earnhardt.
I just meant to rattle his cage. I didn't mean to wreck him.
That's right.
Exactly. And there's a rivalry there, too, between Brandon and Burt, which escalated from Bowman Gray. But it's my job to control that and keep it in the madness control the best we can. But also make sure the fan is entertained in a safe way. And I'm going off of my wrestling history here. Mm-hmm. And I think we've got it's all about storytelling. And we've got some stories that are being molded right now. And what's so great is it's real. Yeah. It's raw.
Well, there was a reality show with Burt Myers as the central character. Now, I've never seen it, but of course I heard about it.
Yeah, the Madhouse. Madhouse.
And you used to flag for the Madhouse, but I hear that you're not flagging this year.
No, sir. I walked away to solely focus on the Smart Tour.
That's a smart decision.
Yeah, no pun intended. Right.
You want something to keep an eye on here?
Yes.
I want you to keep an eye on the kids.
God, I love your voice. You are the Charles Peralta of short track.
The kids is what's really going to come into play here in the middle part of the season. Carson Lofton, 14 years old, the son of Brian Lofton, and Carson showed his stuff at Florence.
He did.
He was off a little bit at Caraway, and I love the fact that he was all pissed off at Florence, and he was ticked off a little bit at Caraway. The kid's so clean. he's good, people are going to root for him. The moms are going to love him.
Yeah.
But then you get a kid, like Riley.
Yeah. He's from Bowman Gray.
Yeah.
Really?
He's from Bowman
Yeah,
Gray.
so he's going
How
to bring.
old is he?
He's gonna
Tommy?
bring. He's 14.
Now I have a race car driver in our stable who may be well known, and I won't say his name, but he said to me and to Chris Williams, if they're too young for me to kick their ass after they do something wrong, then I don't want to race against them.
Well, guess
I
what?
know
Carson
exactly
Lofton
who
and-
said that. Yeah.
and Riley Neal.
Carson just turned 15, but still, he's a young whippersnapper. And Riley, he's a young whippersnapper.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
And remember, the Neals around Bowman Gray Stadium, let's just say there might have been a fisticuff or two or arguments
you don't want
from time to time.
You don't want to pick a fight with the Tiger. So
No.
this is his nephew. So you
Gotcha.
don't know what they bring to the table, but that's personality that we're talking about.
Exactly what you guys have been talking about.
And like he said, the young crop is coming. Caleb Hetty, he's our defending champion.
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
still young.
He's very young.
Yep.
And
He's got like the mullet working now, too.
he's got personality out the wazoo.
Josh Williams, not Chris Williams' son, Josh Williams' mullet is a superior grade mullet. I mean, that's a Kentucky waterfall like I've
Park it,
never
huh?
seen before.
The Park it guy.
yeah.
Speaking of Kentucky, Caleb Hetty is from
Caleb
Kentucky.
Hetty, he's
So
nice.
there you go.
Man, you have got an announcer in your blood. I take everything back I said to Chris last week about you. Now, so as we kind of close out this segment, and this has been fascinating, we're going to have you on again as we go through the season, because I think it's important. We have so many listeners that listen to this. We talk about politics, wrestling, and racing.
I want to be on there with Jeff.
Well, and when Jeff comes back on, he's our boss, Double
Yep.
J, Jeff Jarrett.
Yes,
we
sir.
love Jeff Jarrett, Podcast Heat. He's the one that got us to do this podcast and signed us to this contract, and it's been a lot of fun. But yeah, we want to talk about it. We're even talking about, like, here at South Boston Speedway. How do you increase exposure? How do you raise the profile? How do you bring more people in? How do you make short tracks sustainable? And one of those things that we've been talking about is, concerts, but also wrestling.
Yes.
And
yes.
so we would love to have that, and maybe have a comeback of your professional wrestling career at least once, perhaps here at South Boston, if things work out. We're not going to talk about what we're talking
Or
about.
Orange
but
County at
can he
the
still
Rumble
fit
in
in tights?
Rougemont.
There you go.
Rumble in Rougemont
Oh,
is
man.
the last race of the season for
That's
the
what I'm
title.
talking
And
about.
it's Rumble in Rougemont at Orange County Speedway. That's our last race. So I
Would you
might
get
have
back
to,
in the tights for one more go? Could we get Double J maybe be your tag partner?
if Jeff Jarrett,
Tag team?
if we can get Jeff Jarrett and myself, which he's helped me out at WrestleCade in Winston-Salem, me and him can talk something out. I think we can work on something.
Oh, man, I'm excited. Now, I'm going to work on this, Bob. You just work on getting better and finding out what car number goes to what driver and how they did in qualifying.
If not, we're going to get Double J to bring in the guitar up beside your head.
Wow.
All right?
I don't think
that would be worth it right there.
I don't think I missed a car number. I know these guys. Okay, listen.
I know you.
I missed you, and for that I'm going to be forever, apologetic.
Well,
for
if you
sort
just
of.
getting to know me, you're going to know that I give
You're
everybody
part of the
shit.
family. He's done called you Bobby. So
There you go. Absolutely.
Bobby,
Later
you're
tonight,
great.
it'll be, damn it, Bobby.
Yeah.
That's right.
So
now it's going to be Stanley Sadler racing.
And
There
so-
you go.
And remember, Hermie loves that. So do you see this also as a feeder series for those young drivers? Even say that the Kevin Harvick kids, the Kurt Busch kids. I mean, do you see that as perhaps what the Smart Series can provide as well?
It could be. If you look at Steve Park back in the day, his dad Bob was synonymous with modified racing in the North, and he came up through the ranks. He wound up, running for Dale Earnhardt Incorporated and doing a good job. Greg Sachs, he won.
Steve Park was a great racer.
Yes, and Greg won
unfortunate how
Daytona
that-
back in the day, 85 or something like that. I mean, that was for me as a Long Islander, that was like, wow, Greg Sachs, our guy did it. So I think you could see, a kid like, Carson Lofton, Riley Neal, use this as some stepping stones. I don't know if the Neals really want that, but I know Carson would love that. And he's got just about everything, the looks, the know-how, he can speak, and he's pretty damn good behind the wheel as well.
Yeah, and now we got Chris Williams back. We had to go check the dryness of the track.
Yeah, the
Chris, and
track
you brought a
wanted
guest
to.
with you.
Yeah, the track wanted to show me. There's a little bit of weeper right there in 1 and 2, but it's right on the yellow line, and so they spent a little bit more time, and they just wanted to make sure I was comfortable with us going on time, but also, they were going to send out their divisions first. But the track looks really good. With the wind blowing, it done extremely well. So. Yeah, I had to go do that, and then it runs into everything. Where's the transponders? Oh, well, they're in my truck. Where's such and such? Well, they're in my truck. And then it's, well, where's JB? I need a key to get the radios to hand out. I'm like, well, JB's goofing off.
Bobby, it's hard to be the poor man's Bill France. You know what I'm saying?
There you go.
That's
Yeah.
it.
Michael Gentry called me Chris France last week, and I said, yeah, but my airplane's a Tahoe.
So you brought a guest with you.
I bought the man, the myth, the legend, David Hoots.
Wow,
So
Hoots.
Last year, I'll let him, David, that there's the mic
Race
right here.
director of the Smart Series.
Well, he's more than a race director. He helps me in many ways. Just not only in function, but rule book. You know, we handed out the rule book here 2 weeks ago, and ironically, everybody's been waiting on it, but me and Hoots has been on it for quite some time, and he, operation-wise, it's what he does, right? He does everything to the T because he learned from the best and the best. And so we've handed it out, and ironically, everybody's been bitching about it for a year and a half.
Really?
Not one word. Nothing. I mean, I'm like, what is going on?
Now they got rules. So welcome to the program.
Ride
This
that
is
mule as long as you don't throw you off, okay?
welcome to Leaning Right and Turning Left with Sadler and the Senator. I'm Bill Stanley, Virginia State Senator. Hermie Sadler's the other half, but he's not going to get here till about 4 o'clock. So I take every opportunity that I can to get on this podcast and have these conversations because they're otherwise boring when Hermie's doing it. That's just the way Hermie is. But welcome, and I must say that Chase Brashear does an awesome impression of you as well, the manager of the South Boston
He did this
Speedway.
morning. He did a real good one.
So I know what you sound like before you even say a word. So welcome to the program, my friend.
Well, everybody tells me I have an accent, but I think everybody else has got the accent. This is the one I've got.
You're the one that speaks normally. That makes more sense.
But this particular area of Virginia has several dialects, and they're all
Indeed.
beautiful. But you go across the street, you may hear another dialect.
That's true.
But it's good to be back, not only with the Modifieds. I grew up with them, lifelong fan of them, and then be back to a historical racetrack such as South Boston. It's played such a role in a lot of great motorsports, and looking forward to seeing the action that we'll have here today. It's going to be quite impressive. It's I hate to say it because I'm probably older than a lot of the drivers, but it's been over 30 years since I've been to South Boston.
Is that right?
The last time I was up here, I came up when we were working on with the Day family when they owned the track, the reconfiguration of the pit road so the Xfinity cars could run on it and expand the pit capacity. So it's quite different than what I remember, but I've seen great races up here. My wife reminded about some weather conditions that she endured up here when we came for some races, and politely excused herself out of riding up. But we're looking forward to a great modified race.
Well, here in Virginia, we have, in America we have 4 seasons, but in Virginia we have 9. So you can experience all 4 of the traditional ones in about 12 hours here in the Commonwealth.
I hear that about several Commonwealths. I mean, I don't know what it is when you put that on there, but Kentucky and Massachusetts and Virginia seem to be leading the charge with different things.
You're exactly right about that. So exactly what are you doing with the Smart Modified Tour right now? How you helping out? How you helping out Chris Williams and these gentlemen right here? But did you lose a bet?
I did.
Does he have some
Unfortunately,
compromising
I lost
photos?
The bet, and the first
What
thing,
is it?
The first challenge that I took with Chris was, Chris, don't come into race control with flip flops, and he's honoring that. So we've cleaned him up.
Flops.
I do like flip flops a
I
lot.
think he overdresses for a race myself, but maybe that's where I'm from.
Listen, he's representing great companies here with the Smart Tour and Pace-O-Matic, and somebody made me a bet that said, could I clean him up? And I'm working on it now. With that in mind, I didn't do a very good job on my haircut, so I've got some work to do.
Well,
myself.
you're only one man, okay? Sometimes it takes a village.
It's a tall task.
It takes a
It is a tall
village,
task.
especially with Williams there. But
Other thing is just taking a look at applying some experience and taking basically the concepts that the teams wanted when they created or resurrected the Smart Tour and formalizing the rules to where they would be more manageable
Right.
and simplistic than what some other series do based on technologies and capabilities like that.
wow, that's the old head that we need here in this.
Yeah,
Series.
absolutely.
That's
Well, I mean, the
amazing.
thing about it is, I took on the role of doing it all, and they didn't want to judge, juror, and prosecutor all in the same.
It was a lot last year for you, bud.
It was, and I knew. I mean, David helped me. He laughed. We talked about it. He helped me kind of get started of doing some directing, and he said, "Yeah, you showed up late, and you left early, and you didn't ask any questions." And I said, "But you taught me a lot." And I explained some of the things that he taught me, and he said, "Well, you did apply it." So the cool thing is David's been in the booth with Les Richter, and he's been in the booth with Mike Helton. He's been in the booth with John Darby's, and I mean everybody that are, not only, consider some of the best and the best, but Hoots is the best of the best, right? And he taught a lot of these youngers. He taught Chase, and he taught some others. And so he's seen it all. And like we talked about when I first asked him to do it, I mean, think about it. Most of the decisions made was by fire, right? Because it was happening, and you had to make those decisions, and you learn from it. And, you learn from it and had to apply them. And that's what Hoots brings to it. He's been through it. There's not too many things that he hadn't seen and done. And, the old saying is you can't bullshit a bullshitter.
Right.
In his case, you just basically can't fly it by him if he ain't seen it before.
Well, I mean, if he's been up to, Hoots, if you've been up that high, you must have been convicted of a misdemeanor that carried with it a potential jail sentence, and you're doing community service to work off that jail sentence if you're down here with Chris Williams trying to straighten his ass out.
Well, what it truly means is I probably screwed up as much as he did early on.
True statement.
And nobody in this job, I don't care if it's the first day or the 500th day, is perfect, because it's a very dynamic, moving thing, and you try to learn from it, and your experiences will help you more than just being a smart individual, and I'm not, but my experiences tell me, okay, if you do this, this is what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. So if you have a good idea there, you can kind of plan ahead and do it that way. Again, it is a very dynamic position that you're trying to do all this, and when you put 24 to 28 modifieds on a 4/10 mile racetrack running at 100 miles an hour, they can help you find the errors in your thinking.
That's a wise statement, young man.
So it's I think for the most part I've raced with these guys off and on at some of the local tracks and through the years, and have gained their confidence. Doesn't mean that we're perfect. By no means we're not. And basically, if we're doing our job, they're racing, and we shouldn't be involved.
Yeah, and I'm going to tell you right now, last year, Chris and I have had a lot of conversations. And as this thing was growing and he was taking on all these roles, I think being able to step back a little bit and have somebody of your caliber, quality, and experience to take over that race director role keeps his good friends from yelling at him while he's up in the tower from downstairs in the stadium, in the stands. But I think it also, too, Chris made a conscious effort to make sure that he improved tech, make sure that he implemented rules that were specific to the series itself, and then had a race director who actually knew what he was doing.
Whoa. Well, he just slapped me right there.
I'm kidding. You were doing a great job. You're just doing so much. You're from parking haulers all the way to running the race. I mean, it was amazing.
Having watched Hermie and Elliott grow up and been on the wrong side of some of my decisions with them, it's something to watch them start double clutching and explaining things in the way they explain. Okay, now slow down and let me help me understand what you're trying to accuse me of.
It's that Emporia education they got.
No, well, I don't hold the Emporium part, but that part that the one went down there to Chapel Hill, I have some problems with that.
Me too. Oh God, the Carolina Blue bleeds in Hermie's side of the family.
Anyway, one thing that I want to say about what David brings over here, and Chris and I talked about it. He goes, "What do you think about bringing him over?" It's a great idea, because Chris, as you said, has so many different duties here. He needs to be out there. And I've told people with the Lucas Oil Late Model Dirt Series, the series director, I said, dude, you should be stepping out from the race director and instead standing there, going out through the midway, going through the pits, standing up in the tower and observing and taking notes. And I learned that honestly from, Supercross and motocross. The people that are the top brass of those series, they're not running the stuff. They're looking, they're observing, and during the week, they're making the changes that need to be made to make the show better. So now that he has David over here to be able to do what he needs to from a race direction standpoint, Chris can kind of be that more of an observer to find out what needs to be better.
Well, and that has made a big difference. Even though we've only gotten a couple races off and we've been rained out a couple times, you can feel that in the organization itself.
Well, yeah, the thing that I like to apply is I'm a racer at heart first, right? right? And I'm a fan. And, you know, we've talked about this on the Flow Network. You know, we've wanted 2 to 3 TVs and a pit reporter, which we have an opportunity that you don't know about today. You already talked to? Yeah, perfect. So we got a pit reporter today. Go, this is how this works.
Because he needs 15-minute breaks every 2 hours. Okay,
Exactly.
it's just the labor
and
laws.
I'll come up here and help you today a little bit too. That'll be fun. But my point is I sit back and I watch every Sunday night. I watch our race 5 times. I look at different things.
I know.
Sometimes it's a ruling that we made, or you know, something that happened that I just wanted to have a understanding. And all of our camera angles sometimes doesn't capture it. But what I do notice is I like battles. Modifieds are having passes everywhere on the racetrack, and we've kind of been missing that. And I went into the production booth at Florence, and I was like, thanks to David, you know, doing what he does best. And I went over there, and I'm like, we need a battle cam. We need somebody to say, hey. And I asked the kid running it. I said, how many races you been to? Oh, it's my first one.
Oh,
You're producing a Flow TV, and this is your first race? This is going to be interesting.
That's why I sit next to him.
I filmed the high school prom last week. That was my first filming job.
Yeah.
Well, the roles are all different, but you have to take it in account. I still hold some responsibilities with another racing series that I'm committed to, which is the Trans Am by Pirelli series.
Oh, nice.
And so there's moving in and out, but in that case, I'm the race director, which is a different role than this quote race director, and it gives you a chance to cross-pollinate and see things from different perspectives, and been doing that now for 3 years and enjoying that. But there's opportunity that I can help Chris with what we're doing here, and use some times and never upsets my wife when I'm gone. So,
You've been married a long time, I see.
oh yeah, 38 years.
She's a patient woman.
So,
But I think what you were saying is so important. You know, he's looking at it from not just the NASCAR perspective, not just the modified perspective, but he's learning stuff from Trans Am. You know, each one of us bring in, you know, a little bit of something different.
Yeah.
You know, off-road for me and dirt over the last several years, and just I think that helps because we all look at things from a different perspective, and those perspectives are very important when we get together during the week when we do have those conversations. And trust me, Chris likes to be on the phone, okay, for a long time. so those conversations help him. You know, hey, what's your opinion on this? Hey, what's your opinion? And he'll ask so many people, and then he'll take the collective thought and make a decision from it.
And that's one of the great things about Chris is he is a sponge of information, and then he makes determinations based on that. There are a lot of people that believe certain things, and their ego gets in the way of letting them bring that information in and maybe change the way they think or feel or act.
Right.
And Chris certainly has that, and that I think is one of the great parts of the personality of the Smart Tour and why it's growing and why I see a lot of growth in the future. So my last question before we go out, because we've been going for an hour, but we could talk forever.
We could go forever.
But I know you're looking at radios. I know you're looking at your phone.
I'm sitting there making sure.
But I'd like to get you guys back on again.
Yeah.
But, you know, what I'm also seeing is a lot of interest. We interview a lot of NASCAR friends of Hermie Sadler's, the Kyle Pettys of the world, the Kenny Wallaces. Kenny's getting back into dirt, and he's probably having more fun than he ever had in NASCAR. We've talked to Kyle. Kyle wants to come and run in the Smart Series, so we've got 4 cars at the Sadler Stanley Racing Team, co-owned by Hermie Sadler, Bobby. And
I mean, has he said it 24 times? Because he told me he was going to get them all back, is what he told me.
but you know,
he's the co-owner. Remember, it's Hermie and co-owner.
But what you also have is a lot of interest from the guys that have run, you know, and whether it's Elliott or Hermie or Ryan or Bobby, you know, they said they just got tired of NASCAR and the hamster wheel that it was, and now they're getting back on this track in the Smart Modified Series, and they're having fun for the first time in a long time, and they're getting their passion fulfilled when it comes to racing. But I'm seeing a lot of our NASCAR legends, let's just call them that, the Ryan Newmans. He came and ran Wilkesboro, and after that, it wasn't a hard sell to say, hey, why don't you come? We'll build a second car in the Sadler Stanley Racing Team and do it. I'm seeing a lot of that, where a lot of that old, what really was the great parts of NASCAR in the 90s and 80s, 90s, 2000s is now coming to the Smart Modified Series Tour and these short tracks again.
well, the NASCAR Winston Cup is the highest level of motorsports in the United States,
Oh, yeah.
and probably in the world.
Yeah.
The people that with F1 would disagree, but that level requires constant professionalism, focus, and whatever. And when you watch a smart race, it's fun.
Yeah.
There is fun for the driver. He's not having to listen to an engineer say, do this and do that, and it doesn't matter how bad it feels. Run the car the way you want it, help set it up, get out there and crawl up under it. Tony Stewart has said the same thing. I want to get in there, and he participated in a couple of tests. He wants to run a modified. I think Clint Boyer would jump at it if he wasn't busy on Sunday afternoons working with Mike Joy and trying to figure out what they're doing and whatever. But there's interest there because they don't want a 10-month commitment.
Yeah.
They want to have some fun and
come in, have a good time,
enjoy themselves
and leave
while they still can before the quote DOB catches them with the date of birth.
Yeah.
And that's when you have people that are having fun, it shows.
Yeah. And look, I've when Bobby and I talked, we were last year when he was running for another team, we'd camp next to each other and we'd always talk. And there was one time, I think it was at Wilkes-Barre, he's like, hey, why not run for you?
Yeah, sure.
I was like, yeah, whatever. I said, look, I don't make those decisions. It's Hermie. I don't even get to pick paint
Co-owner
colors.
doesn't get those.
No.
That's why I said Hermie.
It's little C in co-owner, by the way, Bobby. And little C, not the big C. I run this thing for whatever it's worth, and I really picked the wrong one to run. But and he's having a great time, too.
Yeah.
But, our first thing was, look, we want to compete, we want to win, but we want you to have fun. And it seems to me that Bobby's having a great time.
Everybody
and
seems.
Ryan's having a great
Yeah,
time.
they are.
And that's really what matters because it reflects that on the track.
Yeah, and look, these cars are sexy, right? We talk about it all the time. They feel the power. Of course, we've talked about it. They see everything working. You know what I'm saying? From shocks to everything else. Tire, coil bind, if they're using them or not. Torque arm right now. Torque arm. Everybody talking torque arm,
torque
right?
arm, yeah.
But they're having fun because it's so fast. These cars are the fastest thing that was produced in NASCAR, and it doesn't matter if you're an open or if you're up north. Modifieds are fun to drive. They're sexy. They're over monstered go-kart, right?
You got some forgiveness in the front and the back with the bumpers and the Nerf bars.
Yeah, exactly. And everything happens here quick.
Yeah.
I mean, your reaction time and everything is much quicker than everywhere else, unless you're at Talladega running 200 mile an hour and it's all in slow motion because you're going to hit it no matter what, right? But they are having fun, and that's all we're trying to do is provide a platform. If you look around us, we have the legends of our time,
and Bobby.
We have announcers. we have directors.
Yes.
We have cameramen.
You have flagmen with personality.
Well, we do have one mistake in our deal, so you got to give us one. But we all love and we've helped raise the bar of racing in some sort of what we do.
Yeah.
And we all respect that from each other because we've seen that growth. We've seen that expertise happen. And we're just bringing it all together to make a better platform for these teams and our sponsors and each other. And if we can still have a little fun, we're not making any money. None of us. Nobody. But guess what? We're enjoying what we're doing because it's our passion, and that's why we do it.
Well, you've got a car that most people can still relate to. Now, when my pickup truck stops, most important thing I have is the $5 towing insurance to tow it because I can't work on it. I mean, I just
totally different engine than the one I was peeking in my dad's car.
I'm still looking for that thing. I don't know where it's at in the truck, but it's there. But these, brute horsepower, big tires, a chopped down car that looks like they're not homemade. They've got more craftsmen in that, but brute power, wide tires. Get on it, get off of it, stop, drive under the car. That's racing. They're not as sophisticated by design. They put on great racing, and people can relate to them.
Yeah.
But these cars have evolved over times. As I told you, I've been going to modified racing since the late 70s.
They'd have Pinto bodies, actually. Ford Pinto bodies.
Absolutely. Vegas,
Vegas.
Cavaliers now, coupes back then, Chevette, you name it. But there have been a lot of evolutions that have made these cars safer, okay? Because there was a time when modified racing in the mid-'80s was dangerous, so we could talk about that another time. These cars cars are much safer, but they're just as bad to the bone as they've ever been. They're like 600 horsepower missiles on the racetrack,
right?
And they're unlike
and
any
they
other
sound
race car
so
in
good.
America. Yes, they
it's
do.
The best engine in racing.
And bring earplugs if you're down in the corners.
That's right.
We're all old enough, and we hate to admit it. We remember when big blocks ran in these cars.
That's right. Oh my gosh!
And you would hear the brute power of a big block accelerate at Martinsville.
Yeah.
Carrying that motor and that car all the way down the straightaway, and it was still pulling.
Yeah.
Well, the small block does the same thing. It's just a different combination of what it is, but that was racing.
That's why they call them ground pounders, right?
That's right.
Well, gentlemen, I know I see old Chris Williams over there itching a little bit. The sun is out here at South Boston Speedway. This has been a great conversation, and let's do it again, guys, and maybe at another race pretty soon. But we've got racing that's coming up at South Boston Speedway. The Smart Modified Tours out here, powered by Pace-O-Matic. The sponsor on our cars with Bobby Labonte and Ryan Newman, and the Sadler Stanley Racing Team, co-owned by Senator Bill Stanley and Hermes Sadler. Bobby.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can tell you this.
Hey, look, Chris gave me a lot of money to give you crap today, so it was a lot of fun for me. I hope you've enjoyed it.
Did we get a video of Chris giving out money?
I've seen it twice. I should have been taking pictures.
Oh,
He's
Lord.
been throwing hundies. He's been throwing hundos out to everybody, but I guess I'm too far away from your arm's reach, aren't I?
But they were low-digit serial numbers, right, with moth?
Probably. Okay. Probably right. Well,
let me tell you
and
something.
And if that's the case, then either he needs a lawyer or I need a Fifth Amendment, to not be able to testify against.
None of it's possible without Pace-O-Matic. I can promise you that.
Pace-O-Matic has been great.
The growth of our series, I can put right now on the back of Pace-O-Matic from a standpoint, and without the money, you can't make it. It just don't happen.
Well, but you guys too have raised the profile of Pace-O-Matic, and I can tell you, they do skill games here in Virginia and throughout the Commonwealth. Skill games are games that you have a chance to win based on your skill. They're not games of chance. They've really revolutionized the gaming industry, and here we're having that fight. We've got that lawsuit going on. Hermie's been at the forefront fighting for small businesses for Pace-O-Matic, so those skill games can go into businesses, and small businesses in Virginia can actually be a part of the gaming industry, and it's not left to the monopolies out in Vegas. But, this has really raised their profile. Last year was who is Pace-O-Matic? Now everybody knows. And so I think there's been a good return on their investment as well. And it's helped us, especially because they're coming into these small communities and they're helping them. They're not just putting their names on the back of our cars and on the names, their name on the front of the windshields of every car. And this series, they're involved in the community as well. And it's made a big difference. And I think they've helped you grow, but you've helped them grow as well. And I think it's been a mutually beneficial relationship. And, and Pace-O-Matic is wonderful people. They're going to come down here today. We're in the Pace-O-Matic suite in turn 1 of South Boston Speedway, getting ready to run the modifieds here in the Smart Modified Tour. Gentlemen, I can't thank you enough for this time, and I've never seen, old Chris Williams looks like a worm in hot ashes squirming over there. He's got his radio.
I'm ready to go, man.
He's got his headset. He's just like, I'm holding you up, but we ain't racing until 7:30.
We got a lot to do. We got practice coming up here in just a little bit.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to another episode of Leaning Right and Turning Left with Sadler, and not the Senator, but Bill Stanley, co-owner of Hermes Sadler's race team. Hermes not here today, but this is a great interview. Guys, let's get you back on. Powered by Pace-O-Matic. You have a great week. We'll see you next week. God bless you all.
NMLS number 65084, equal housing lender. Woo!
As an adult, don't we all miss spring break? Nothing like taking a week off from all your responsibilities. Well, here's the next best thing for adults: a spring break from house payments. SaveWithConrad.com can help you get rid of all your credit card debt just like that. We're routinely helping our listeners save $5, $6, $7, even $800 a month. And you don't need perfect credit or money out of your pocket to do this, but check this out: no house payments for 2 months at SaveWithConrad.com.